My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California.
Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. 9:22 a.m. You're looking at the state right here that's gang stalking using commercial planes, and these are the smaller planes flying right over my head. This is the state that is providing evidence against the people of the state as the federal government literally breaks apart the system of federal group stalking and monitoring amongst the government and the people of the state who are in the shoes of the government, targeting an American citizen. In furtherance of a state's conspiracy, a organized system of crime, murdering and kidnapping them systematically in concert with the constituents of the state. That's why everybody here that's living under the fake sun, you can see here, just so you can see, this is where engineer light, this is supposed to be the unintelligent, asinine illusion of sunlight that's going to come underneath your doorway into flats growing into on the floor inside of your whatever space that you're in, while you're also having light activity that's occurring above you. As I've shown you the engineer light that is sharing, I'll show you what I just took captures images of, sunlight that comes through the peephole. All right. This is the evidence. This is not sunlight either, and neither is this sunlight, and neither is this sunlight that pierces through the apartment. Okay, in real time, the entity is, this is a demonic environment. So in real time, based on what I do, based on what I document, based on who I'm comparing the demons who are going to prison at Woodside Senior Apartments to, the fake sun appears and disappears. This is not the operation of the natural environment, and you already know that because it sits over this apartment building, this structure right here, from the beginning until the end of the day. Okay, and the same pattern of this engineered light, whether the fake sun is sitting on the roof or whether it's covered up by clouds. Okay, it's the same exact pattern of conduct. The entity is doing so with impunity. Everyone in units 33 through 64, the demon possessed are so mentally disturbed, they're so obsessed, this is because of their condition, they're demon possessed, that they are risking going to prison, because they're all going to prison in units 33 through 64. This does not, under any circumstances, slow down the P.O.C. This was the demon under the fake sun in the afternoon on the bike, where the fake sun was over the same apartment building. That's Title 18, does the same thing with the Ontario Police Department, and that's a sex offender that's also monitoring what's between my legs. And this is what the government incentivizes, this is what the government is engaged in, this is what the government is contributing to with regard to public corruption that's sexually perverted, sexually demented, sexually motivated, and it's also that which is satanic, with regard to this practice of witchcraft while the government is gang stalking. You have the demons who are in custody of children in Unit 41. This is Avanath Capital Management, the occupants that live in that unit, and they are in custody of children to whom they are a threat. They are slamming their car doors, pacing around, and they're doing so monitoring me under the fake sun. You've seen the fake sun over them while it's right here at 3:30 in the afternoon. They are indeed focused on me, gang stalking. Again, these are the Latinos. That's a Latino family. That is an Avanath Capital Management employee living with the occupants who are gang stalking. The entity engaging in what is gang stalking with the Ontario police, who engage in psychological torture and terrorism with them as I document them. Any gang stalker that is not a natural born citizen is going to be subject to deportation. And I want to be clear, the entity that is gang stalking on an ongoing basis demonstrates impunity and disregard, actual hatred. These are people that don't even want to be in this country, as they are tested with regard to what the Constitution requires of them, and they continuously defy it in the face of an American citizen that's prosecuting them before the world. That's the reality of those who need to be and shall be deported. Walking and bringing the stroller into the apartment and closing the doors, all activity creation. All right, Avanath Capital Management contracts with those who are on the grounds gang stalking. That's what the yellow truck represents. They're gang stalking while the entity is in engineered light, maintaining the amplified audible activity inside of this apartment, while demons are loading and unloading in their car, having children running around in engineered light. They're monitoring as a community, and they're monitoring with the entity that flies over my head in planes, incriminating each other. It's the removal of the demons who are sitting in office. It's the removal of corrupt landlords who contribute to murder and kidnapping, where it is underway by your residents, by your employees, by the public who comes onto the grounds of your venue, not your private property. It is also disincentivizing the profiting that gang stalkers such as Avanath Capital Management, that's what they represent. They are doing so while the government acts with impunity. Avanath Capital Management acts with impunity, and that is holding the entire entity accountable, as their interests in federal court will conflict with each other. They will compete with each other, but this is an entity that's targeting one together. This is a violation of the Violence Against Women Act. This is a violation, obviously, of my constitutional rights, and it's also a violation of common sense, nature, and logic and science. All right, the engineered light, which you will see, is over the light source is over me at Alvarado Gardens, while the entity is maintaining this light source. At the bottom, what you see, I'm inside of my leasing office, and that's the sun over me looking outside of my leasing office over the hillside, the same hillside where I document the sunrise as I remained in 2024, nowhere near Ontario, where the fake sun rises and sets as it remains over one building in alignment to me. That is units 33 through 48 is the specific building where this fake sun sits all day long, and you're seeing it in the same position as it is down here at the bottom, which is again 9:22. I started this video at 9:22, and I'm just showing you, just like I did yesterday, at 11:46, where this fake sun is still here. You saw it at 11:46 right here, and you also see it at 3:30 p.m. right here over the same building, in alignment to me at the same address, where there is no provision in nature that sunlight is going to appear in this manner. Never. Even as you compare it with the sun being at Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles, there's no sunlight that's going to appear on the door, through the peephole, into the distance inside of the apartment. And they are also engaging in what is communicating a threat, terrorism by possible light activity with regard to what they're documenting, monitoring, on my communication device. So as I begin viewing videos on YouTube, as I upload documentation onto the internet, the engineer light appears and disappears, gets brighter and dimmer. The demons are stalking with noise. This is the criminal interference with quiet enjoyment. The Avanath Capital Management, who's gang stalking with the government, providing more evidence against Avanath Capital Management, as I'm subject to terrorism inside of a private space, while Avanath engages in a sex offense in concert with the government that flies over my head in relevant position, and that is directly tied to the fake sun. That's how you know that the government is indeed targeting me. Specific. This is not ambiguous at all. All right, and this is a very precise prosecution of an entity that sought to murder and kidnap based on the solicitation of a demon, a psychopath, a sex offender, such as Tracy Banks and her son, Eric Spencer, and everyone else whom I know. Well, I don't know them personally, obviously, because if I knew them, they wouldn't have been, and they were actually friends and family, they would not have targeted me with the state. But nonetheless, those that are in your lives, they're state actors, and they are in courts, in the corrupt courts in California, on the record engaged in any method of criminal defamation, while I'm showing you the pattern of conduct that they're engaged in, the entity is subjecting itself to federal prison. And it is the testimony regarding what everybody at this property is doing under the fake sun at what is 9:17 in the morning. And as I capture this video, these are the entity that is under in units 33 through 48, and they're all going to federal prison. In this building, 49 through 64, they're all going to federal prison. And this is the chief means of amplified audible activity. Somebody over 55, someone with no job, someone that never sleeps, someone that never abandons my location inside of the living room, on the couch, not just anywhere in the living room, over me in the living room. All right, this is noted by the ongoing amplified audible activity. There's nothing that the entity is doing that is going to be mysterious or vague or unknown because of the nature of monitoring. They're stalking you with noise, and so you're fully capable of perceiving it and documenting it. And this is the asininity of the demons who sought to target someone that they anticipated would be silenced. They thought that they were going to kidnap me and discard me, and no one would ever hear it. That's not happening. And so you're listening to, on many occasions, very common sense logical breakdowns, scrutiny of what is clearly targeting by an airport. We're at 2500 Terminal Road, Airport Road is of the terminals 2 and 4. There's nowhere where you are taking off hovering over Woodside Senior Apartments, but this is what the entity is doing, and it's very common sense. Very common sense, in addition to what the federal government has full access to and what they will do. Beyond a reasonable doubt, establish how they are, by virtue of the route, the direction, their elevation, and the noise that I'm documenting, you're targeting at the venue. In addition to, it is in conformity to the pattern of conduct because it's amplified, which is audible activity, under a fake sun that's stationary, and engineered light, which is not the product of the sun. Comparable with what is the crime scene, that is Los Angeles, at Alvarado Gardens, where there is no sun. At the same time, this is requiring more than one sun in the sky. And you know on its face that that is supernatural. It is as supernatural as a population mirroring an identical behavioral pattern. These are demons, demon-possessed people who have a whole secret society in California. They're violent sex offenders, and they're going to be civilly and criminally prosecuted for domestic terrorism. And any gang stalking demon that's not even a natural born citizen, legally speaking, those demons are being deported. All right, this is the significance of what I'm documenting, and just to show you, this is the light source on February 13th. So today is February 18th, 2025. This is same time of year analysis, same time of day. And this is what the entity is maintaining as I'm documenting it on February 13th, 2024, where I remain at Alvarado Gardens for the duration of the day. And this is literally what I can do. And this is what you can do as well, because I have published the evidence onto the venue of the internet so that anyone is able to see what it is that I've published, because it's for your information. It's for your benefit as well, because you are, as I am surrounded by an environment that defies nature and defies science and logic and common sense, so are you. Because what you're looking up in the sky space, what's not the natural environment over me, is necessarily not the natural environment over you. And it provides context regarding everything that surrounds you. This is engineered light piercing into the depths of an apartment, while the fake sun is remaining stationary as a matter of evidence, okay? And just to be clear, in case this is the first time that you've seen any of my documentation, you see the fake sun over me at 9 o'clock in the morning. I will show you the fake sun that's stationary at this same location into the depths, throughout the day. All right, so this is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You have the same framing around the front door. That's not sunlight. You can see it starts right here, just starts right here, just frames around the door. This is engineered light for purposes of surveillance. While noise is maintained, criminal interference with quiet enjoyment is how that's legally referred to, and that's the prosecution of a gang stalking landlord who will be civilly and criminally liable for the government terrorizing me in planes and helicopters while I'm on your venue, because it's not a private property. Where the fake sun and engineered light and the state is stalking, you have lost your constitutional protections of operating as a private property. You're not. And where gang stalking is underway, it's not a private property. The entity has the fake sun as I'm documenting it yesterday at 11 o'clock in the morning. All right, this is again, 2 hours later. It's 9:30 right now, an hour and a half later. It's advancing over the same apartment building as though it takes 7-8 hours for the sun to go from the the south side of one apartment building to the north side of one apartment building, where it's both rising and setting. All right, that's the pattern of conduct, however. That's the POC that I've been documenting. And as I showed here, you're looking at what is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:22, this same pattern of what is engineered light piercing through a peephole has nothing to do with the position of the fake sun. As I showed this morning, this where the fake sun is absent and it's a cloudy day, you will see the same engineered light piercing through. It's not sunlight, and it has nothing to do with the fake sun. This is the maintenance of in the same way that this is not sunlight and it has nothing to do with the fake sun. All right, it occurs with regard to the presence of that engineered light source, but that light activity of piercing through on my hand, which I'll show you right now, where the fake sun, this is where the fake sun is not shining bright, but you could still see the pattern of engineered light. You still see, this is the detail I'm teaching you to pay attention to. This is the shadow of this metal shelf. It's the same pattern of conduct with regard to the fake sun that's shining brightly while it's sitting on the roof. You have a more concentrated shadow. You have a brighter hue of engineered light, equally impossible, reaching underneath a covered structure at an angle in order to touch underneath the wall structure. That's not sunlight. All right, that's the P.O.C. of engineered light. It's merely a different color. This is in the dark living room at 8:43 in the morning, engineered light. Okay, this is the same frame around the door while the fake sun is rising, and it is in the middle of the afternoon. It has nothing to do with the fake sun. You also know it has nothing to do with the fake sun because while the sun is over Alvarado Gardens as a matter of evidence during this time of year, even at the same time for the duration of the day, no provision for the sun to be at Woodside Senior Apartments anywhere in Ontario, anywhere other than Alvarado Gardens, because you're going to hold the state accountable for its system of domestic terrorism, targeting an American citizen through satanic methods that defy nature and what one person could prove is happening to them, i.e. malice. You're going to hold them accountable for this satanic conduct that you prosecute them for. All right, and that's showing the entity's mental instability, by the way. But when you're looking at what's supposedly a cloudy day, this is the hint of a fake sun. Did you see it? All right, the absence of any quote-unquote sunlight on the door, and you're looking at what is the same pattern of engineered light appearing on my hand. This has nothing to do, like I said, with the fake sun itself. It's not the product of sunlight. This is surveillance, and this is your introduction to the spiritual realm. All right, the demonic surround you. And that's not, again, this is just for your information because Satan is a spirit. Satan uses people. Satan is not omniscient. Satan is not omnipotent. Satan is not everywhere. In other words, everywhere at the same time. Satan, obviously, I'm showing you the demon possessed. This is how Satan is maintaining ground by a bunch of people whom he possesses with his spirit. And they have a tendency to engage in criminal activity. They have a tendency to engage in crimes, all right? And this is the prosecution for federal group stalking and monitoring. And again, if this is the first time you're paying attention or have ever seen my documentation, I will show you the supernatural while you will see the fake sun stationary over the same apartment building. Here it is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 2:31 is when this video ends. And this is the malice where the demons that are living at a crime scene like this, walking by an operation of your phone, this is a gang stalker that's acting in concert. I will show you the same pattern, the Ontario International Airport, hovering over the venue that's amplified in volume when I'm inside of the apartment. Playing activity interferes with quiet enjoyment. The impossible light activity interferes with quiet enjoyment. The interference with the operation of the appliances and the communication devices such as the television are a means of interference with quiet enjoyment, as well as the demons that are gang stalking, creating earthquakes and loud booming noises. This is the likes of those over 55 that somehow have that ability to do so with simultaneity to what I physically engage in. Doing so not coincidentally while the entity is under a fake sun. And this is the identification of stalking in commercial planes. There is no takeoff from Terminal 2 or Terminal 4 over the venue, not a private property, where the supernatural is present. A fake sun sitting over an apartment building. As a matter of evidence, again today, 9 o'clock in the morning, this is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, where a bunch of sex offenders are obsessed with my genitalia. Their obsession is deduced from the engineered light that follows what I do, what I reveal, whatever it is that I'm engaged in, however hostile the demons are regarding what it is that I might be documenting or discussing with a gang stalker such as Tracy Banks. Obsession is shown through, that is literally through an engineered environment, the operation of the weather. That's showing that the demons are obsessed with me. This engineered environment is focused on me. It's for the purpose of gang stalking and monitoring and stalking me. You're walking your dog, not because you're getting aerobics, it's because you're stalking me. This is an obsessed, demon-possessed gang stalker. All right, and doing so in concert with the government. Obsession shown through the many expenditures to engage in gang stalking me. Thousands of dollars on a daily basis using commercial planes and helicopters flying over my head, just like I showed you this morning. That's what you're looking at. While the demon from units 33 through 48 crossing path while I'm standing outside, and this Latino male in operation of the communication device, the same one that was riding his bike under the fake sun at 2:30 in the morning, when you're looking at it over this apartment building at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's the malice of a bunch of sex offenders who are indeed obsessed with my genitalia, because they're monitoring every moment, every second, in every room inside of this apartment, which the entirety of it is a private space. Now, that is the inexplicable interest, an invalid and illegitimate interest by a government. That's a sex offender. By a landlord, that's a sex offender. By a population, a community, that's a psychopath and is a sex offender. I am not going to mince words with what they are doing. This is supported by factual information, that which is irreconcilable, because the sun is not stationary over Alvarado Gardens as a matter of nature, nor is it stationary over Alvarado Gardens and stationary over in Ontario at Woodside Senior Apartments. That, however, is a very specific pattern of conduct, and that's how you have the government prosecuting its own co-conspirator, its co-defendant, the people of the state. And these elderly demons, psychopaths so obsessed that they are willing to go to prison, you're going to put such threats to national security away, because their obsession is so irrational that they are risking their own liberty and their children. Again, these demons in Unit 41, gang stalking me with their children. If you had any concern for your children, even though you're not escaping federal prison, but somebody that is concerned with their children would remove them from this location in order that they would never be included again, because that's how concerned you are about being able to maintain custody of your children. That's how interested you are in not violating someone to the extent that you lose your own interest because you care more about your kids than you do gang stalking somebody else and monitoring their genitalia. But that is not what the people of the state exhibit. That is not what the government itself exhibits. This is mental instability. This is demon possession, and it is a threat to national security. My genitalia should not be a matter of public interest, but it is. And that's a fact. All right, I want to make sure that you're understanding the significance of the fake sun that is sitting over an apartment building from the beginning to the end of the day, because it's the prosecution of the people of the state. All right, and the demon in unit number 55. All right, acting with impunity on an ongoing basis. This is the demon license 5WUB715. Clearly has nobody that cares for her in her life. She has thrown away whatever remainder of her life she has. She's already over 55. She's gang stalking. She's clearly has decades practicing wicked, evil, and criminal conduct with a government that she expects to come to her rescue. No, the government has put her in prison even longer. She's going to a mental asylum. All right, and she is gang stalking with impunity on an ongoing basis, in concert with an entire apartment complex, all of them in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. All right. Now, with regard to the necessary change regarding federal law, the Violence Against Women Act is speaking to what is a preview as to how federal law shall change. Because the state of California is gang stalking and targeting American citizens, your protection in housing, where especially where a bunch of demons gang stalking, they can't even pay their rent. They have the audacity to be gang stalking with the government who is helping to pay their rent. Not only are you not going to be qualified ever to receive housing benefits, but federal law shall not only protect women, because the entity is gang stalking men as well. Okay, but this is showing and informing the federal government as to how you can. I am prosecuting under existing laws, and I am also advocating what laws shall come into place based on the criminal conduct, based on that which the entity is employing in order to target an American citizen. And it is an egregious sex offense. It's a violation of your human rights, and it is that which a population shall be prosecuted for. Every single last one of these demons and all 144 units, however many are occupied, and it shall not be a mystery. They're going to report it. Like I said, the gang stalking police, they're going to report their identities. The gang stalking pilots are going to report their identities. They're going to prison. And everybody gang stalking at Woodside Senior, it's going to be produced. This is how it works in court, and they're going to prison, and they will be losing their federal housing benefits. You will be prosecuted on your criminal record, an established sex offender. You will not be getting any more housing benefits, especially since landlords in the state of California, that is an established domestic terrorist targeting American citizens, you become a liability, and no other landlord is going to want to do business. You're too much of a risk. That's how that's going to work. And that is justice, because you will be held accountable. Gang stalking is happening on your property. Prepare to be prosecuted. Get ready for it. All right, it is currently, again, 9:44 a.m. The entity is engaging in what is documented impunity while I am subject to this P.O.C. inside of the apartment. All right, the fake sun, engineer light getting brighter and dimmer and brighter and dimmer. That's terrorism via directed light. The engineer light remains framing around the door from the beginning until the end of the day. The ongoing amplified noise of sounding earthquakes and booming and planes and helicopters and whatnot. Even using screaming children, gang stalking with your kids. All you are doing is showing the federal government how much of a threat and how any gang stalker is literally abusing your children under federal law. This is, again, the entity that has subjected itself to all the ways in which justice is going to manifest for the targeted individual and for those that should not be in the path of sex offenders and domestic terrorists, such as the people of the state, such as literally the public entity that is California. Every gang stalking household is going to be removed from children. And this is the light source that remains. This is the P.O.C. This is where the entity is keeping the fake sun. There's gang stalking at the venue on an ongoing basis with impunity and malice. And that's directly relevant to how long you are going to prison. Units 33 through 64. It is currently 9:45 a.m. The entity keeping a fake sun over Alvarado Gardens at this time of year, as I'm documenting, and the wealth of the evidence is already published on the YouTube channel. You can also see the pattern of conduct website. This is the POC.wordpress.com. It is currently, again, 9:45 a.m. This is POC. All right, I just want to document again the mental instability and what's necessary upon imprisonment. This is the mental examinations. This is built into the prosecution for a mentally unstable population that has gone without notice, has gone without being adequately addressed, that has actually existed under the radar. And that's because the corrupt entity is a murderer. So they murder and kidnap, and they traumatize, they intimidate people into silence. But I want to be clear, I just finished capturing video, and it is impossible that the ceiling and the walls are cracking as you're merely walking around. So again, this is audible activity and engineer light, in the same way that it is impossible that sunlight's going to frame the door on the inside of the apartment. It is impossible that the sun is going to be at such a low elevation that it sits on the roof of a building. It is impossible that that light source would sit over one building from the beginning to the end of the day. In the same way, the entity is engaging in what is the amplified maintenance of noise inside of the apartment, which is AVANAF's ongoing civil and criminal liability for its demons that are accumulating what is a devastating award for damages based on the impunity of this company. And at the moment that I stop recording again, the demons that are mentally ill, this is the personality of Satan, though. So this is what needs to be understood. But this is going to result in those that recognize that they need Christ Jesus when they're sitting in their cells, when they're sitting in those padded rooms. All right. But they are exhibiting what is the personality of Satan, who is a loser, knows that he loses and continues on that path of losing. All right, is engaging in what is delusional conduct. I'm going to keep on. I'm going to persist, even though I'm going to prison. And that's the prize that the demon in Unit 55 wins. And she acts on behalf of the entity. Already knows the police are gang stalking. You're gang stalking with the police. You're gang stalking with the corrupt airport. Both of those actors within the city of Ontario are being shut down. All right, these are the prizes that gang stalkers who are demon possessed. And there is nothing cool about serving Satan. You are literally witnessing how it is a risk to your mental health. These are people that have lost their minds. And this is not legally relevant because they don't have a defense based on that. And it is absolutely it is absolutely legally irrelevant for one to claim that Satan made me do it. And that's not the substance of this evidence. It is relevant, the nature of the crime, the fact that it's demonic, and that is also supported by the evidence. The sun sitting idle all day long, that is demonic, but it is not any sort of basis whereby I'm prosecuting the government. I'm prosecuting the government because it's proven to be stalking. It's proven to be stalking in a very malicious manner with a population that has been stripped while it maliciously hides behind and yet unpersuasively maintaining some substantially similar position as the target individual. And you are not, and you do not, and you shall not exercise any of those rights. And so while a demon is gang stalking Unit 55, this is the ongoing sounding of booming and earthquake conduct. The moment that I stop recording, this is again a lesson for those who do not know Christ Jesus, because you're going to witness people that have destroyed themselves. They've destroyed their lives. They've destroyed their future. They've destroyed their families. They've destroyed what is their golden years. These are people over 55 years old, and they're going to be locked up if they even survive being in prison at this point, their advanced point in life. There's nothing cool, or there's nothing defiant. There's nothing like brave or courageous or gangster about any of that at all. And you're old as dirt and you're monitoring my genitalia. There's nothing about that. That's Satan, however. This is a over 55 years old. Okay? Gang stalking it where she lives. This is the demon that's acting as an entity. The moment that the demon knows that I've stopped recording, that's federal stalking under Title 18. 22618 subsections 1 and 2. It's technical abuse under the Violence Against Women Act, psychological torture with regard to my operation of my communication devices, 34 U.S.C. section 12291. This is a HUD-regulated property. They're being prosecuted under multiple laws, and units 33 through 64 are all going to federal prison, and it is starting with their need for Christ. They have so far deviated from what any sound person would do. There's one person, and I don't advocate criminal conduct, but there's somebody that's robbing somebody, burglarizing their home and stealing from another person. You don't have any right to do that. You're a criminal. You're on the opposite side of the law. I fully support being prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But there's a difference. Now you're getting to the point to where, okay, this is not making any sense now because you're on camera. You know that you're being investigated because you've been given plenty of indication while you're stalking the people who you intend to burglarize. You're aware of the surveillance that they have of you. You're aware of your identity being produced to the authorities, and you continue to, on surveillance cameras, burglarize that person's home when you know that you're fully identified. You're literally going and waiting for the government to come and take you out of that person's home whom you're burglarizing, which you knew that it wasn't a mystery in the first place. So why would one openly expose themselves to that type of to that sort of demise? That you're understanding where it's not that criminal activity is ever that which you should be engaging in. That's not, but I'm getting to the mind state, the sick mind state. Now, you know at this point that you're not getting away with it, that you're known. It's not a mystery anymore. There's no secret society. There's no secret. And so you do it before the world, and more importantly, before the feds. More importantly, before a federal prosecutor. Never mind that you don't like the fact that you are being prosecuted. Nobody cares. Satan doesn't get a vote. You can psychologically torture, you can terrorize and harass the federal prosecutor if you want. And that's what a bunch of unsophisticated defendants have continuously done. And for years, they're going to pay for that. But you are witnessing what is the demise of those who have left their natural mind, their working mind, a long time ago. And it's not due to old age. This is delusion. All right, this is years of engaging in what is practicing wickedness. This is an inability to accept the reality that it is over. This is an inability to accept and appreciate the consequences for what is not acceptable, for what is not tolerated, for what you shall no longer do. And you shall no longer do it. You're going to be confined, restrained, because you're not doing it anymore. There's no debate there. This is not a democratic act of the law. You're going to be prosecuted. You're going to be restrained. Now, I just want to document because I want to make sure that I hone in on that analysis. This is a demon, and this is a demon that's acting with an entity of demons who happen to work in government, who happen to hold positions in government, who happen to be a part of the community, and they want to, on one hand, appear upright and want to appear dignified and want to appear noble and want to appear normal. All right, walking their dog with a smile across their, that's a demon-possessed, gang-stalking sex offender and a psychopath. And none of that is hyperbolic. It's based on the pattern of conduct. It's based on the level of malice that everyone can see. Because you see that fake sun, you see that government, again, gang stalking with the cooperative conduct of those on the ground around me, and you are aware of the environment that they're doing it in. You're not walking your dog, Satan. Everyone sees you for what you are. Everyone. And that's been the objective from the beginning. I just want to be clear. This impunity is attributed to an entire landlord who's going to be prosecuted for psychological torture. That has never been prosecuted before, but it's going to be. That's going to, you cannot quantify that type of harm, but it's going to be quantified in an attempt to accomplish justice. And this is what speaker companies that, in case you did not know, on more than one occasion, you have there a pattern. Okay, the speaker companies in Avaneth Capital Management, gang stalking landlords. All right. The entity is doing so with impunity also. The moment that I stop recording, this is evidence that's going against the government that's gang stalking. There are government actors. I will repeat again. Jay Burnett of the Ontario Police is going to federal prison. A. Morris of the Ontario Police is going to federal prison. S. Patty of the Ontario Police is going to federal prison. Jason Knighton of the Ontario Police is going to federal prison. There is a list that I've documented by name, but you have these law enforcement agencies that are state facilitating venues. They are, in other words, infested with demon possession. They're cockroaches that are long overdue for being disbanded and being specifically named. What the demons are doing at Woodside Senior Apartments, the state is doing. It's directly relevant to how long you're going to prison. None of this is isolated or separate. The entity that acts with impunity, you shall understand and recognize through damages being ordered, through prison time being handed out, through what is the loss of reputation and position and influence. So, in other words, the world just knowing that your company is a sex offender, that your company is gang stalking, that's an oxymoron with regard to you actually want to make money of it. No one's going to, they're not going to support that. And that's good. That's justice. On top of the fact that you're going to pay me for what you inflicted. This is the implosion of federal group stalking and monitoring. And this demon acting with the state, and it's relevant to what the police are doing. They're gang stalking with a psychopath that acts with impunity, because they're gang stalking 24/7 in planes and helicopters. These demons are stalking with activity under a fake sun that remains and an engineer light remains because the government is gang stalking. And the entity acts with impunity. That's relevant to how long. It's no mystery. You got people from these agencies, they're going to prison. You're going to prison. PRISON. You're going to prison. This is not going to be sliced up and diced up and, oh, well, they did this part and that's not how a criminal conspiracy is prosecuted. Justice requires this, and I'm making sure that I handle every aspect of the analysis with regard to what the entity does. The entity engaged in gang stalking, they're its own prosecutor, and I'm laying out right now how this law works. And it's not foreign. If you're familiar with how you prosecute a conspiracy, you're prosecuted for both the conspiracy to commit the crime and the crime itself. And then the way in which you executed the crime. Oh, they do so with tremendous malice and impunity. Oh, you don't care about going to federal prison? Well, threats like you go to prison even longer for that, because you represent an entity. And the entity that disregards and disrespects and while you're engaged in terrorism, this is under all circumstances absolutely intolerable. Not going to be tolerated whatsoever. The entity is doing so, again, while you're doing a bunch of unemployed elders. Okay, this is attributed to the state. So I just want to make sure that I add this on. The entity is engaging in that. And this is, again, attributed to mental instability, not those that are criminally ignorant regarding the inability to appreciate that they're committing crimes. This is an entity that is accustomed to getting away with their crimes. And then your mental instability, as the world now knows that you've been obsessed with me the whole time, but the entity sought to falsely depict a targeted individual as being some sort of paranoid schizophrenic, as hallucinating, as being some threat to the entity, when the entity is a threat to that targeted individual. All right. You see the obsession through the unnatural environment. You see the obsession through the ongoing exposure. You're going to prison for even longer. You're so obsessed with me, you're willing to do that. You're so obsessed with me, you spend thousands of dollars on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, just to keep my genitalia on tabs, whatever it is that's going on with it. And then you're so psychotic. You're still obsessed because then you're mad because I'm telling everyone about your concern for my genitalia, and I will continue to. I shame sex offenders. I name them and I prosecute them. It is currently, again, while the entity is, that's Avanath Capital Management, 9:58 a.m. The moment that I stopped recording that video, ongoing amplified audible activity, which is an ongoing criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, which shall be recognized with regard to prosecuting property owners in the state that are engaged in domestic terrorism with a corrupt government. This is how the government is gang stalking and targeting in furtherance of murder and kidnapping American citizens where they live. All right. And this is an apartment complex. All right. It is currently, again, 9:59 a.m. This is documentation of impunity and malice. And this is the substance of what I'm literally listing on an ongoing basis on the document entitled WSA-the People, Woodside Senior Apartments, which represent the people of the state. This is state action. It's all state action. They are vicariously acting on behalf of the government. That flew over my head in plane, which you saw under the fake sun. That is not at the same time over Alvarado Gardens. This is, again, the unsophisticated defendant. Okay, the government is not superior with regard to intellect or ability. The government is nothing other than a bully. You have a bunch of obsessed demons who murder and kidnap people into silence. But when that doesn't work, when Christ Jesus says, you shall be named and identified and punished, now you're witnessing what is literally at a common sense level of scrutiny regarding all of this asininity, all this chicanery, this idiocy that surrounds. This is how they're targeting somebody. They're a bunch of demons. And they're also unintelligent while they do it. And what you are witnessing is, it is glaring in your face that they're all stalkers. And that's the truth. It's currently 10 a.m. again on February 18, 2025. This is following the video evidence that I will go ahead and include on the podcast, since the entity goes to the extent to punctuate documentation showing the mental instability. That's a national security threat. This is not some religious rant, okay? There is nothing religious about Christ Jesus, by the way. There's nothing that is purely religious about this message regarding criminal activity that threatens your life where you are in this country. And it is relevant to those that are outside of the United States as well. There's nothing religious about this. Christ Jesus is real. He is coming back. He's coming back in judgment. And this is a form of judgment. What the government's secrets, the people of the state, the people that live in the state, in other words, the civilians, their secrets are being exposed. It's a form of judgment. He's coming back and he's judging everything. That's what this is about. There's nothing religious about that. All right, it is currently 10:01 a.m. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:40 a.m. This is documentation of criminal obstruction of justice. This is built into the state's pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring. The entity that is gang stalking you, targeting an American citizen, is doing so with regard to the state's criminal conspiracy to target an American citizen in concert with the citizens, and in order to murder and kidnap that person. The entity that is being documented continuously does so while they are being reported to the federal government in order to obstruct justice, to stop that person, to hinder or impede upon documentation being published, psychologically torturing, harassing, terrorizing you, sexually targeting you, with the intent to deter you, intimidate you away from documenting, publishing, reporting to the feds. That is absolutely unlawful. This is what Woodside Senior Apartments is engaging in at 10:39 a.m. The ongoing reverberation of a loud boom. And I just want to be clear, it's also relevant. I also am wearing headphones and listening to content. And so that also speaks to the amplification and the targeting nature of the conduct that's targeted based on the specific environment that's proving that everyone is stalking. You're not at work, you're not protected, you're gang stalking. You're not at home, you're not protected, you're gang stalking. You live and work at a crime scene. You're living, you're visiting, you're present at a crime scene. So you're going to be prosecuted when you are engaging in the facilitating elements for monitoring maliciously. And the entity that does so engages in the pattern of conduct with the criminal intent to obstruct justice, and that's what I'm subject to at 10:39 a.m. This is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment that Avanath Capital Management, again headquartered in Irvine, California, a gang stalking city, a gang stalking county. It's already on the record, and they are also being prosecuted for gang stalking by virtue of even separate from the evidence that I have that the state is a gang stalker. Avanath Capital Management, the corporate actor itself, even in other words, if they were headquartered in Texas, the entity's property is a facilitating venue, and you shall be prosecuted for what is an ongoing active a program of psychological torture that the landlord is engaged in, while the residents and the employees and those that are around the venue and on the venue and the government itself that is using the venue to gang stalk an American citizen. So 10:39 a.m. This is another amplified sound of an earthquake piercing through. I'm wearing headphones, listening to content, and doing so while demons who are stalking, demons who are monitoring, and so hostile to what it is that I'm documenting, hostile to as I analyze their conduct, specifically with regard to the analysis that you'll see in the video. You will see the absence of the fake sun shining, meaning clouds are in the sky, gray colored and engineered light piercing through the peephole, juxtaposed with what is the fake sun that you see and what is still engineered light, because sunlight is never piercing through a peephole. And you can see the same pattern of engineered light piercing through the peephole when both the fake sun is shining and when it's a cloudy day. That is what is being analyzed while the entity is psychologically torturing me, that is inflicting harm. That is, again, an ongoing threat to the well-being, the life, your physical safety, and your liberty, okay? And these are the mentally ill that criminally defame the targeted individual. That's also why the people that stayed at Woodside Senior Apartments are all going to federal prison. Again, the chief means of amplified audible activity, a demon that is pacing like a lapdog, 24 hours a day, always on call for the government, that is refusing to stop gang stalking an American citizen, while that American citizen is reporting the state government to the federal government, and the state government continuously engages in obstruction of justice. That's going to be prosecuted under the name of Avalanth Capital Management as well. That is a state actor, not operating a legitimate business. They're in the shoes of the state corporately, and the people of the state that are living at the grounds and working, including Linda Reyes, the gang stalking employees, and any of the entity that is documented engaged in gang stalking, and you have been granted the privilege to be in this country, you are witnessing what is the formal prosecution and the revocation of such privilege to be in this country, because you're going to be deported. All right, it's currently 10:44 a.m. This is the ongoing documentation that I'm publishing, the podcast, reviewing evidence, even analyzing it, even thinking about it. The demons are triggered by it. That's psychological torture as well. And the entity is you're going to be prosecuted for psychological harms. You're also going to be prosecuted for the physical act of stalking. You're going to be prosecuted as a sex offender, and all of the mens rea, the predatory mind state behind all of the ways in which the entity is sexually motivated, is obsessed with violating the person, and the predatory mind state behind engaging in surveillance and things such as a bathroom, and what is obsessively touching a person with that which is not even naturally occurring, such as engineered light. It's not even sunlight. How is this light occurring just so that you can touch me as I walk around inside of an apartment where you have no legitimate purpose to be keeping someone under surveillance? And as, by the way, that sexual violence is documented, the state government engages in obstruction of justice. This is relevant to, again, all the demon-possessed gang stalking law enforcement agencies, all those that are documented who are subject to prison. They are all engaging in an ongoing criminal interference with the federal investigation. And if you are unaware, if you're ignorant about how that works, the state government is inferior to the federal government. There's a notion called supremacy, okay? And while the entity is engaging in what is violating this supremacy doctrine by interfering with an ongoing federal investigation, the entity is doing so with regard to prolonged terms in federal prison, because it is directly relevant to the police department that's gang stalking through the demons at Woodside Senior Apartments. The entity is relying on the demons that are gang stalking at the apartment complex, okay? And you know that because the fake sun is sitting over the apartment complex from the beginning to the end of the day, all right? 10:46 a.m. Again, this is amplified audible activity that Avalanth Capital Management. This is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment. And the demons that are living in units 33 through 64, this is the direct provision of evidence that's going directly toward how long they're going to federal prison. And they're getting prolonged, enhanced terms, not only for engaging in criminal monitoring, which is surveillance by the state, doing so through the unprecedented means of a corrupt population, but they're also doing so while the government has no warrant or probable cause to actually keep an American citizen under surveillance. They're doing so with knowledge of the fact that their life-threatening gang stalking system has been exposed, and they do so while they are seeking to systematically obstruct justice, like engaging in what is amplified audible activity, gang stalking you, and doing so as though you're going to stand in front of a federal judge in court and gang stalk an American citizen in the courtroom. This is what the entity is doing. It's tantamount to that. While I'm capturing video, while I'm capturing podcasts, while I'm documenting, while I'm publishing it online, which is how you're going to prosecute as an American citizen. You're going to prosecute. You're going to blow the whistle. You're going to inform the feds about where the state is targeting you, where you are. And as though the state government is going to be in a federal court and defy that federal government's authority to prosecute them for public corruption, to prosecute them for criminal surveillance, to prosecute them for the contribution of public corruption amongst a population. While I am capturing the evidence, in other words, the entity is engaged in it, and that's a built-in P.O.C., okay? 10:46 a.m. ongoing amplification, which, again, a landlord is civilly and criminally liable for. This is the speaking to what is, again, removing corrupt businesses such as Avalanth Capital Management from existence, all right? The national security threat that exists while they are profiting off of terrorism in the state, in the same way that a corrupt airport is profiting off of terrorism in the state, in the same way that a police department is being employed as a systematic means of terrorism. They are literally on payroll to stalk, to expend thousands of dollars in doing so, millions of dollars annually. They create budgets, and what is not spelled out in black and white is the fact that they are spending money on, they literally are using it for federal group stalking and monitoring. That's what's not on the books. And that's why corrupt public officials who are gang stalking through a bunch of corrupt civilians like those that are being prosecuted at Woodside Senior Apartments, the mayor, the police, the state itself, the city of Ontario is contributing to public corruption. They are acting in concert together. They are in concert together as an entity, witnessing me, listening to me, monitoring while they are being prosecuted. So this is something that the entity has never experienced before, and the lawlessness that is being documented, which is nothing other than coloring the conduct. There are police officers who are going to federal prison. There are police departments and sheriff's departments that are being disbanded. There are the Ontario International Airport, for example, being shut down. Millions of dollars being restored, by the way, to the state where it's being wasted, such as supporting the unemployed at Woodside Senior Apartments, where all they're doing is stalking someone maliciously on behalf of a corrupt government. And this is actually what the state is consumed with. This is actually where money is going, where resources are spent. All right. And so there are a lot of built-in resolutions regarding what the state is engaged in as a matter of what is an established system. All right. It is currently 10:49 a.m. and the fake sun sits idle over the demons going to prison in units 33 through 48, while they're gang stalking with the demons in units 49 through 64, who are the means of amplified audible activity, chiefly through, again, the demon in unit number 55. And this is the ongoing creation of earthquake-like loud booming, while engineer light, as you see in videos and in images, the pattern of conduct surrounds and a fake sun sits idle over the specific building where I'm located at one property from the beginning until the end of the day. That is a system of gang stalking that Avanath Capital Management, that gang stalkers such as Avanath's employees, that the gang stalkers such as Woodside Senior Apartments, an entirely corrupt community of stalkers. And there's sex offenders that are also monitoring evidence. And so this is the obstruction of justice aspect to what is enhanced time in federal prison. And this is everything that Tracy Banks is being prosecuted for. She is engaged in psychologically torturing her own child. This is the same demon, a violent sex offender sexually exploiting her own child. I'm an adult woman. I'm prosecuting her. But she is a part of the same entity. And she acts with impunity while she is being exposed, while she's being documented, showing the national security threat that she is, while you are conspiring to murder and psychologically torture and harm and silence your own relative. You are a threat to the public, in case you don't understand how that works and what logically follows that. Tracy Banks is not distinct from or separate from the entity, while I am inside of her apartment where the fake sun remains over me in her apartment, where the ongoing amplified audible activity, psychologically torturing in order to obstruct justice, monitoring ongoing evidence that belongs to the federal government. Tracy Banks remains a part of that. She's also engaged in federal stalking that the entire state of California, including Avanath Capital Management, federal stalking under Title 18 remains underway by that corrupt company and the employees. In other words, the individualized prosecution by each gang stalker as it acts as an entity. All right, but the entity acts as one, but that entity is going to be sliced down in federal court. And so the demon, Tracy Banks, is going to be prosecuted for all of that, which I'm prosecuting. The fact that she is claiming to go to work wherever it is that this demon goes during the day, because she has an entire fictitious life, which is going to be exposed when she's prosecuted, and all of the totality of her crimes and the criminal purposes and all the faces, all the masks that she wears regarding who it is that she's encountering and for whatever it is that she's trying to accomplish. But this is a demon, and this is, again, the entity that is acting while Tracy Banks is being prosecuted. She doesn't have to be in her apartment where I'm subject to the P.O.C. She's being prosecuted while the ongoing creation of earthquake-like loud booming noises, which is interfering with quiet enjoyment at a facilitating venue where she resides. And she is acting with the government and obstructing justice. So I just want to be clear with regard to, I'm always having to articulate what is the bigger picture. It is not just this demon that's in Unit 55. This demon is not the natural explanation. It's impossible that she is creating earthquakes. This is demonic. And this is the prosecution for what is domestic terrorism, while a population is targeting on behalf of a government that is targeting and employing satanic methods in doing so, that is speaking to the intent to psychologically harm and also criminally defame. But this is, again, where you are absent any evidence to prove what the government is doing and what the government is as it does it. These are the demon possessed that are targeting in the United States. So it's criminal. And it's also satanic in nature. And that just colors with regard to how America is targeting American citizens. It is terrorism that's underway in this country. And they're homegrown terrorists. They're demon-possessed terrorists. And it's referred to ordinarily as gang stalking. So again, that's 10:46 a.m. And also repeating again while I'm documenting, while I am in the midst of creating that evidence. And this is the state that is defying the federal government with regard to what the entity is doing while the federal government is prosecuting and investigating it. And then it's going to be in federal court as though none of this evidence is already on the record, as though none of this analysis already exists, and the government will be trying to create another narrative, which again, it's a failure from the beginning. But this is, again, speaking to the malice of a corrupt entity. Everyone in units 33 through 64 and all of the Avanath Capital Management employees at Woodside Senior Apartments at 408 West G Street in Ontario, California, they're all going to federal prison. The entire venue, it's 144 units, is being prosecuted for federal group stalking and monitoring. The city of Ontario is being prosecuted, but I am at a facilitating venue, being one person and showing what the entire state is practicing as the fake sun remains over the building where I'm at in Ontario at one property for the duration of the day. It's showing what the state is engaged in. And it's demonic. And there's also a body of evidence that Woodside Senior Apartments is acting in conformity to. Okay, it is domestic terrorism exposed. It's currently 10:54 a.m. This is documentation of what is psychological harms while the demon-possessed are monitoring. They do so with the intent to obstruct justice because Satan is hostile, in other words, to your knowing of his tactics and literally identifying it. Satan feels inferior, Satan feels stupid, Satan feels embarrassed. And Satan is operating through people that are engaging in criminal activity that they're going to be responsible for while they serve Satan, and doing so in impulsive manners such as stalking in the path, stalking with light activity, stalking with amplified audible activity, and you're accruing federal time in prison. All right. It is currently, again, 10:55 a.m. This is ongoing documentation of criminal obstruction of justice. The video documentation is being uploaded to the Google Drive right now. At 10:55 a.m., they're monitoring evidence. This is criminal interference with an ongoing federal investigation. The entity is also monitoring evidence that's being uploaded to the YouTube channel, the P.O.C. So I want to make sure that I publish all of that. Yeah, it's being in real time interference with monitoring the internet. Monitoring the evidence, obstructing justice, psychologically harming me while I am publishing evidence. This is the state government that's interfering with the federal government's investigation of the state. All right, with the intent to obstruct justice. All right, it is currently 10:55 a.m. This is P.O.C. All right, this is documentation just speaking to the ongoing accrual of liability, my documentation regarding liability for, in so much as you can, psychological torture is that which is beyond something that can be calculated, quantified with regard to the harm that an American citizen, that an ordinary person, that a normal human being is suffering. And it also would manifest in different people in different ways. And in many ways, I completely understand. I am not the ordinary target individual because this is a system that's designed to literally deconstruct someone psychologically, mentally, emotionally. And so you're not even supposed to be able to, put together basic sentence structure. You're supposed to be so traumatized. Like, this is the purpose behind psychological torture. Nevertheless, enduring it and also articulating the purpose behind what is satanic, what are war tactics that a state government acting vicariously through a population that is inherently corrupt, it's public corruption, and how it is targeted against American citizens, which is, again, a ceaseless program of psychological torture in order to wear someone down to the point to where you can be put in the perfect circumstance where you can be murdered and you can be kidnapped. All right, falsely depicting you as a criminal or mentally ill, if not both. So I want to make sure that I document, again, in the document entitled WSA-The People, 7:52 in the morning today, February 18, 2025, I'm documenting the amplified loud noise. Again, this is a senior citizen complex. It's quiet enjoyment, period, no matter what type of apartment complex you're at. However, it is relevant that this is a senior citizen complex. These people are it's designated for those 55 and older. And those that are, it's just ongoing relevant context regarding the uncharacteristic, but it is characteristic regarding the pattern of conduct, but it's uncharacteristic regarding the actors and the activity creation, that which is heard inside of my apartment, but it's not heard inside of anyone else's apartment. There's nobody else that is disrupted by it, based on even the demon that's inside of the unit, Tracy Banks, when this ongoing amplified loud booming is occurring. That's not evidence that it's not occurring. It's evidence of somebody that's complicit to it. In the same way that nobody notices the fake sun, in the same way that nobody notices their shadows all over the place on both sides of them, while they also are specifically engaged in a pattern of being at that location in my path in order to create that sort of peculiar light activity, and they're also ignorant about it. Nobody notices the helicopter that flies in circles over a senior citizen complex at all manner of hours of the day and night, and the airport that is hovering over, not just flying over, but it's hovering over, and it's also heard inside of the apartment. While the entity targets me, I'm not the only person that would be able to perceive what the entity is doing, but no one is speaking to it. No one is disturbed by it. Nobody notices it. That's because they're complicit to it. This is the pattern of conduct, however. The entity is targeting one, and you are supposed to be depicted as, if everyone says that nothing's happening, the groupthink conduct, this is demons that act together, nothing is happening, and it's only the contention of the targeted individual, who is supposed to be written off as one that is suffering from some mental incapacity or whatnot. That's entirely, actually, that's not even logical. That's not how actual facts work, but that's how gang stalkers, that's how gang members behave. Okay? It's the absence of the exercise of independent thought. There is no individual. Like I said, you are dealing with an entity in every way, but also spiritually speaking, you're dealing with the demon possessed. And so at a senior citizen complex at 7:52 in the morning, when many of them should still be asleep, with their PAP machines, haven't waken up and taken their blood pressure. They haven't taken off their edema socks, whatever their conditions are, where they want you to see them on camera with their walkers, but you've got earthquake-like conduct inside of the apartments. And this is, again, 7:52 in the morning. I documented in writing what is the ongoing pattern of conduct that the same exact entity is engaged in, no matter how late it is, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, whether it's a cloudy day and the engineer light is present, or it's a quote unquote sunny day and the engineer light is present, and that fake sun is sitting over the venue all day long. And this is also occurring with simultaneity to my physical movement. And the more that I document the environment, that in and of itself is psychologically harmful, there is more psychological torture, and at an apartment complex, it is underway through the criminal interference with your quiet enjoyment, while earthquakes and loud booming is ceaselessly and relentlessly interfering and disrupting the environment inside of the apartment. All right. That's speaking to the pattern of conduct by the demons, all of whom are going to prison. And so as I documented, I just want to make sure I include it in here. It's approximately 11:17, I believe I documented the specific time, but it's currently 11:36 a.m. I want to make sure I include in the podcast. This is the entity that's in excess of 9 times, but I did list 9 times with loud booming inside of the apartment. That is, again, something that senior citizen, those over 55, would never ordinarily be subject to. The fact that I am present around senior citizens that are living in this environment, no one's noticing it, and no one notices anything else about the environment either. It's called malice. All right, these are psychopaths that I'm surrounded by. These are sex offenders that I'm surrounded by. These are stalkers. They're stalkers. These are the demon possessed. And I am blowing the whistle. I'm fully exposing mental instability that is wanting to coexist with normal, actually sane human beings like myself, who are being targeted, who are being isolated amongst the mentally unstable. And that is because the demon possessed, those who serve Satan, they know who you are with regard to the fact that I don't serve Satan. I'm not demon possessed. And I stand out based on that. In addition to what is in the natural, people that don't like themselves and are envious, all manner of just issues, serious mental, psychological, emotional issues, okay? People with inferiority complexes, none of this. Do you have, and I mean the government actors, the government as well, yes. Making a lot more money than me, concerned with what it is and where it is that I'm applying for jobs, threatened by me, where you should have a whole life and career and concerns with your family, but that's not the case. And this is the reality about what's happening in life in this country. People are not consumed with their Facebook and Instagram with all these so-called friends. They don't even like themselves. They have multiple personalities. They do disgusting and vile things that they don't want you to know about. And then the things that they win after they do those things, they're not telling you how they get them. These are the gang stalkers. These are the demon possessed that are targeting people that don't live life like that. They serve Satan. Now, with regard to prosecuting the entity is filling the apartment an excess of 9 times as I started documenting it in text at 7:52 in the morning. They were monitoring my genitalia seconds before the ongoing sound of earthquake-like conduct at 7:52 in the morning at a senior citizen complex. people over 55. Still, they should be napping all day long, actually. But they're not. They don't sleep. And you know that they don't sleep. A fake sun is over the venue all day long. Gang stalkers are not asleep. They're very diligently stalking in the path and creating light activity and the amplified audible activity in concert with the state and the population that comes onto the grounds, surrounds the grounds in order to maintain that system. It is very diligently underway, very detailed. And so is my evidence and my documentation showing psychopaths that are sex offenders and they're stalkers. All right. And this is, again, a company that's being prosecuted for the criminal interference with quiet enjoyment. So is the government going to be prosecuted for that? That's why you detail it in documentation. Like I said, my credibility has already been established. I don't have to make up the fact that the government has been stalking me for years in helicopters and airplanes. And I don't have to make up the reality of the amplified audible noise inside of this apartment, because they are indeed admitted stalkers and sex offenders and hostile criminals who are seeking to obstruct justice. Unfortunately, it does not work against a federal prosecutor. It's going toward how long you're going to prison. It's going toward how much in damages you're going to compensate. It's going toward what is necessary with regard to that corrupt government in that city, in that state that is acting pursuant to that system. That's how this is all relevant. And so I just want to make sure that I document that, because it's in text, but I want to highlight it because this is, again, the substantial and entirely unreasonable level of audible activity noise with regard to psychopaths they're already psychopaths because they're gang stalking you. And then there's psychopaths that engage in even more lunatic-like conduct because it's being captured in evidence to prosecute them. This is with regard to the mental instability that literally needs to be understood as the national security threat. You're placing weapons in the hands of such psychopaths, placing them into positions such as being in law enforcement or having access to commercial planes where they're stalking someone. That's why they're crawling into the pit of an aircraft to stalk somebody. None of this is a secret anymore. That is a national security threat. They are a threat to themselves, and they're a threat to each other and the public. All right, it's currently 11:41 a.m. Ongoing amplified loud booming inside of the apartment, which is a daily occurrence. This is the prosecution for a gang stalking landlord, providing what is landmark legislation that should fill this country, because this is what the government is doing. And the government's doing it through the people who use their businesses, use their properties. All right. And so this is what it's speaking to, what should not be gender specific. Not only women are subject to this sex offense of being monitored inside of where you live, which is your home. That's a sex offense. And the Violence Against Women Act should be based on the domestic terrorism that the state of California is engaged in, shall include men and women, because they are subject to gang stalking. It's not just because I'm a woman. That's not why I'm being gang stalked. All right. It's not only because I'm a black woman. That is not the chief means. Yes, I am a woman, and I also am African American. All right. There are people that have, again, the spirit of racism, the spirit of sexism. But that is not the chief reason why. This is satanic. They serve Satan. They're demon possessed. So you have all manner of wickedness and a whole bunch of false notions against people, judging them and hating them for no reason. They're demon possessed. That spirit of hatred comes from Satan, and it's manifesting in criminal conduct that people are civilly and criminally liable for. Okay, it's currently 11:42 a.m. where I want to make sure I include on the podcast the psychological torture regarding remaining inside of an apartment that is managed by the Avaneth Capital Management. And this is speaking to the removal from the ability of Avaneth Capital Management to engage in any participation in federal housing programs at any property because of their criminal engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring. They are a domestic terrorist. They are a violent sex offender. They employ psychological torture as you enforce your constitutional rights in reporting them. All right. And that is, again, what's in violation of federal law, and Ontario, California is in violation of federal law at all of their properties throughout the state of California. And this is nothing other than a template with regard to how you are infiltrating this corrupt system of targeting by the government that relies on the corrupt population. even using their businesses and their properties in order to facilitate this system of targeting, which is in furtherance of murder and kidnapping. It is again 11:43 a.m. Everyone in units 33 through 64, they're willingly going to prison, and that's exactly where they're going. They're going to prison, and they're going for prolonged terms, regardless of the fact that they're already elderly. Okay, whether you can do a brisk lap around the block, or whether you have to walk around on a cane, you're going to prison. Everybody in units 33 through 64, and all Avalanche employees that are gang stalking by working at the venue are going to prison. And Avalanche Capital Management remains civilly and criminally liable for all of that which I document, which is in conformity to the pattern of conduct. I am doing my due diligence, and in so much as one can document what the entity is doing and providing what the analysis for it. It is the ongoing iteration of psychological torture. This is the targeting system. This is monitoring, where stalkers are monitoring you. So this is understanding the malice of that system. But again, you cannot quantify, and you can't actually understand how the ordinary target individual is subject to suffering on a ceaseless basis by an entire entity, a public entity that is also a demonic entity. But justice requires that both with regard to the civil and criminal prosecution of that entire operation, that it be approached in doing so. And it does start with federal time in prison. It does start with removal from office. It does start with disbanding. It does start with loss of your employment, loss of your ability to access government programs anymore, loss of the ability to be in a position of government, a loss of your liberty by literally going to prison and or at mental asylums. All right, it's currently 11:45 a.m. This is documentation of the criminal interference with quiet enjoyment because federal group stalking and monitoring at Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California, which is the specific environment. It is the crime scene, and that is with regard to evidence, further evidence incriminating the entire operation. Avalanche Capital Management, Woodside Senior Apartments is competing with the crime scenes documented in Los Angeles, California. Speaker Companies Incorporated and Alvarado Gardens, far away from here, where the specific environment is clearly shown. All right, this is P.O.C. Plane activity. All right, this is where planes taking off. The origin of sound as I'm documenting Avalanche gang stalking. X 93948. Light activity. They're monitoring inside of the apartment, and they're also engaged in federal stalking. The Ontario International Airport has no terminal over Woodside. The plane was already stationary, and the sound of the plane originated right here. At the same time, I'm capturing a gang stalker monitoring via Avalanche that's criminally facilitating. That's why Linda Reyes is going to prison. You're also looking at crossing a path. This is criminal facilitation by the demons that come onto the grounds, gang stalking. All right, this is a sex offender license 8PJV322. This is light activity, relevant position. It's the ongoing operation of gang stalking inside of the apartment where I remain under what is a fake sun. The fake sun never exceeds beyond this building right here while I'm inside after 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And where I am standing right now, where the Ontario International is speaking to what the Woodside Senior Apartments is engaged in, and that's why I have a shadow appearing in an inexplicable manner. That's called malice. That's what the airport, the city of Ontario, is facilitating: sexual violence amongst the population, stalking amongst the population, and doing so intending to obstruct justice, psychological torture, like stalking by planes and helicopters, like stalking in engineered light, which is all over the buildings, while the entity, its company business, is going to be the admission of federal group stalking and monitoring. 6X93948. I'm subject to psychological torture, a threat to my life while I document a third party. It is incriminating that third party. All right, and Avalanche Capital Management employees are going to prison. All right, this is a sex offense. While I'm subject to psychological torture, I documented ongoing amplified booming inside of the apartment. This is impossible light activity. This is malice. They're all stalking here. Here's another shadow right here. This has nothing to do with sunlight either. Anything you're doing on the property is criminally facilitating what the whole venue is engaged in. These elderly demons are sex offenders and they're stalkers where they live. That's why they're going to prison. And here's the fake sun remaining over the same building. The same building where it's over at 7:51 in the morning. All right, the Ontario Police Department was gang stalking by helicopter at 8:31 in the morning, as I documented on February 10th, 2025. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon right now. This is not the natural environment, speaking of malice. The entity is gang stalking on an ongoing basis. Coming onto the grounds is Avanath Capital Management's engagement in the malicious pattern of conduct. They're coming and engaging in what is a business that is making money while they're systematically monitoring an American citizen, and it's an exceedingly violent sex offense, and it's malice. While the government encourages it, the government torments and targets and threatens the American citizen, enforcing their rights. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is what I'm documenting on the document entitled WSA-The People, and the Ontario International Airport is being shut down. It's P.O.C. again. They're coming onto the grounds gang stalking. That's why everybody here is going to prison in these units. They come onto the grounds gang stalking with the government, monitoring my communication devices while they're coming onto the venue, stalking in the sky space, helping the government that's engaged in surveillance at Woodside Senior Apartments. And Avanath Capital Management shall be civilly and criminally prosecuted for it. This is P.O.C. RMMAK is going to federal prison. She's gang stalking with the Ontario Police under the fake sun. The entity that is driving out of the gate is monitoring. They're driving by, and this is stalking in the path with light activity. And the Ontario Police Department are stalking the path with helicopter. This is the stationary presence of the sun at the Ontario Police, and this is an intentional communication of a threat by psychopaths that employ psychological torture while the government is monitoring you. And this is also where the entity is gang stalking by the Ontario International Airport, doing so while, again, the units in 33 through 64 are all going to prison. Linda Reyes is going to federal prison, okay? This is the gang stalking that is clearly juxtaposed with the gang stalking at Alvarado Gardens. They're gang stalking at the 7-Eleven and possible light activity while they're pacing on Vine Avenue. The entity amplifying helicopter activity is an unlawful threat. It's audible activity with light activity under the fake sun. This is a specific environment, and everybody in units 33 through 64 continuously demonstrate to the federal government that that is exactly where they shall be going, and it is federal prison. All right, they're doing so in a specific environment, and that is, again, the removal of Mike LORENZ, Derek Williams. This system of gang stalking grandfathered in. That's why you have a pattern of gang stalking under the tutelage of this demon, Mike LORENZ. This is exactly what Derek Williams was the corrupt leader over, while gang stalking is that which is practiced in the city of Ontario. And this is speaking to the ongoing satanic leadership of Paul Leon. This is a corrupt government actor who was fully aware over 20 years while gang stalking is happening on his watch. MARMMAK, again, documented 3 times. This is a systematic repeat engaging in the pattern of conduct. None of the entity has any lawful any lawful protection while the government is engaged in surveillance. And so this is the unconstitutional engagement and what is the pattern of conduct of what is systematic surveillance by a population while engaging in the demonic P.O.C. Engineer light is piercing through the peephole. The fake sun is stationary over Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles, California at this time of year for the duration of the day as well. This is speaking to a P.O.C. and the entity using the helicopter as a specific threat communicated while the entity is monitoring documentation. The entire property is gang stalking. So I just want to be clear. I've already been at that street at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The entity moves the fake sun remaining over me as I go in and out off the property. The entity is keeping this fake sun, is monitoring with a corrupt police department that is entirely being removed altogether. But I just want to be clear, MARMMAK, this is impunity. She's going to federal prison. I've already documented her. And she's a sex offender monitoring while the demon in Unit 55 is ongoing amplified audible activity, which I'm also documenting in text. And this is how you're understanding the concerted conduct. This is what strangers do. They come into the parking lot. The entity paces over in planes and helicopters. It's amplified inside while the demon above in Unit 55 is engaged in ongoing amplification of what is pacing, doing so, which is sounding like the walls and the ceilings cracking while they're just driving through monitoring me together. They're monitoring while engineer light is moving across the 7-Eleven at 636 North Vine Avenue. That 7-Eleven is already a documented gang stalker. They're engaged in 24-hour surveillance. This entire city is gang stalking. But with regard to relevant positioning, you need to understand it's beyond Woodside. Everybody at Woodside is going to be prosecuted, but this is the prosecution for what the entire city of Ontario is doing. And 7-Eleven is making money while engaged in 24-hour surveillance because it's open 24/7, by the way. But they're gang stalking while they're driving on G Street, driving on Vine Avenue, and doing so with the entity. It is currently, again, 3:46 p.m. This is the demon that's monitoring. This is, again, the impunity while gang stalking with the Ontario Police. Leaving the vehicle as a means of facilitation while the demon inside of what is 55 is engaged in ongoing amplified audible activity. That is the demon that you saw gang stalking with the Ontario Police while Tracy Banks was walking out of the apartment and doing so standing right here while the fake sun was over this building. The fake sun advances as I advance, and that's why it's still here, by the way, because it's right here at 7 in the morning, and it is 3:47 in the afternoon. That's the relevance regarding light activity and the amplified helicopter activity, while cowards are spending thousands of dollars monitoring me 24/7, monitoring my genitalia, monitoring a woman inside of an apartment through what is the maintenance of light activity and engineered light in an engineered environment. It is demonic. This is a demonic system, and it is in violation of existing federal law. That's the Violence Against Women Act. Living in relevant position is the P.O.C. All right, and that's the same demon unit 41, gang stalking with Avanath Capital Management. Okay, Linda Reyes is going to federal prison, and so is he. And his adult occupants inside of unit 41, because I want you to see this light source while he walks over. I want you to see this. Those that are not natural born citizens are going to prison. So the fake sun advances as I advance, conversing with those that come onto the grounds to engage in the P.O.C. All right, and you're talking about what is deportation for those that act with this same impunity that Avanath illustrates. Alrighty, it is currently again 3:48 p.m. If you'll recall, the company that's coming with the City of Ontario at 9 o'clock in the morning, that's the same employee, 9 o'clock, and the fake sun is right here. He's going to prison. The City of Ontario is gang stalking and systematically doing so through the business of Avanath Capital Management. He is gang stalking as you look at the two videos that is also published online at 9 o'clock in the morning. The City of Ontario doing an inspection, which is the P.O.C, where the municipality is engaging and facilitating it, doing so with the people. They enter in this apartment, and the fake sun is over the same apartment building. He is gang stalking while right now under the guise of what is Avanath Capital Management's business. That's a prosecution of that corrupt business. MARMMAK is gang stalking with Avanath Capital Management, and she is going to prison. All right, she's engaged in psychological torture while her light activity is in alignment to the apartment, while the demon in 55 is engaged in the daily conduct criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, while ongoing amplified loud booming and earthquake-like pacing is occurring. Again, MARMMAK. If that's not a natural born citizen, you are talking, there's also going to be deportation. All right, and Avanath Capital Management is facilitating gang stalking. Avanath Capital Management is engaged in the Violence Against Women Act, the violation of that with the population and the state that were amplifying helicopter activity. This is all manner of the state acting together, while again I'm inside of the apartment and I'm documenting ongoing amplified noise, loud booming and earthquake-like conduct. Demons, this is what they're doing outside, stalking in the path with light activity and pacing all around, just sitting in the parking lot, and Avanath Capital Management's employees are engaging in it as well. And they are all just living around. They're all going to prison because the population aids them, comes onto the grounds while the ongoing system of surveillance remains underway, and Avanath Capital Management employees are going to prison for it. Linda Reyes is gang stalking on the clock. It is currently 3:49 p.m. This is a sex offense underway. This is a sex offender that knows when my panties are down. They do the same thing when I'm in the restroom, stalking in the path with light activity, while I'm being stalked inside of the apartment with amplified noise. They're doing so with knowledge of what a woman is doing inside of what is a private space. MARMMAK, again, is going to federal prison, gang stalking in concert with the Ontario Police Department in a specific environment where the sun is never going to be over Alvarado Gardens, not the natural environment. The light source speaking to what is criminal activity committed by a community, okay? Train activity, crossing path, light activity, gang stalking, all right? The same exact elements of monitoring and its impunity. That's why they're all going to prison. This is what they're doing on a 24-hour basis. And MARMMAK having a field day with her foot on the brake now, light activity in the path, while train is a method of amplified audible activity. While I'm in the apartment, using the hazard lights, while amplified pacing is the method of amplified audible activity under the fake sun. This impunity that you see, federal prison. You're talking about years for federal prison. MARMMAK, that is an Arizona plate. This is P.O.C. Just pacing, walking back one after another, walking into the parking lot, they're monitoring. This is P.O.C. It's currently, again, 3:50 p.m. This is the disbanding of the Ontario Police. Clearly, you're looking at criminal conduct by a police department, gang stalking, the contribution to public corruption, while they come onto the grounds engaging in criminal activity with the state. And they're all sex offenders that are also interested in spending thousands of dollars and monitoring my genitalia. Because that's the reality of what she's doing while she comes and converses and visits any demon. She's gang stalking. And I am actually the focus. Unfortunately, the police are actually focused on me and my genitalia. The people at the state and Avanath Capital Management are actually concerned with me while they're gang stalking. And you know that because a fake sun sits over the building for over 8 hours in the day. That's the relevance of the light activity creation, okay? It is, again, that's a Latina female with an Arizona plate. She's going to federal prison, but she's also going to be subject to what is a prosecution under VAWA. Avanath Capital Management is going to be prosecuted for criminally facilitating stalking of a woman, engaging in psychological torture within a pattern of conduct on behalf of the state, doing so with the people that come onto the grounds, who none of them have any constitutionally protected basis. So this is, again, the groundbreaking prosecution for a government that is engaged in domestic terrorism. It is stalking, but it is beyond ordinary stalking. It's gang stalking, and it is both in violation of existing federal law, and this is speaking to advocating the expansion of existing law to incorporate not just women that are gang stalked, because men are gang stalked as well. Men are subject to the sexual violence, invasion of your privacy at a criminal level, the criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, and this is obsession. The demon refuses to leave. She's stalking in the path with light. That's somebody that's going to prison. Okay, demons who are psychopaths, they're obsessed, and she knows, she's listening to me tell her she's going to prison, and that's exactly where she belongs. That's an animal. That's a sex offender. She's engaged in psychological torture, while this demon is the means of amplified sound of the crackling ceiling and whatnot. Pacing, using the vehicles, and there is no terminal over Woodside. The sound didn't come from Centimore. The sound originates here. The Ontario International Airport is being shut down. All right, this is a highly predictable cycle of stalking by the demon possessed. And the city of Ontario, the mayor is being removed, the police are being disbanded, the airport's being shut down. Avenat, the property, shall not be anymore because nobody's getting any housing benefits, and Avenat Capital Management shall not exist participating in any housing benefits. All right, because they are engaged in domestic terrorism. They are an enemy to a domestic enemy to American citizens, facilitating and engaging in while you're living at a property where your life is threatened on an ongoing basis by the public, who are free to come onto the grounds with that landlord, gang stalking you. That's why Avenat Capital Management is going to no longer be participating in the federal housing programs. You will be barred as a documented terrorist, but you are also a violent sex offender, and you yourself are not qualified to participate, nor is anybody living at Woodside Senior Apartments going to be receiving any more housing benefits. This is the impunity that I'm documenting, though, so you want to pay attention. She was stalking in the path with her foot on the brake. That's light activity in the path, using the method of the train activity while the first pedestrian's crossing path. You have the male that walked after that. They're stalking in the path with light activity in engineered light under the fake sun. The planes then fly by, which is hovering, and this is targeting on its face. The entity is engaging what is amplified audible activity, and doing so while the vehicles are driving out. This is the elements of what is light activity, relevant positioning, and amplified audible activity. Using the train is implicating the government itself as gang stalking. You can't hear the train over here, and you can't hear the train inside of the apartment either. It's demonic on its face. The sun doesn't stay over one building for 8 hours. This is demonic on its face. That is speaking to the malice, and that was an obsessed psychopath that's willing to go to prison while she will not abandon her place in relevant position. That's why they're going to prison, because that's what they're doing maliciously by living at a crime scene. They're all going to prison in units 33 through 64. Avenat Capital Management employees are going to federal prison, and the entity is doing so with an ongoing refusal to stop stalking. It is again 3:54 p.m. This is what Tracy Banks was doing yesterday while the Ontario police were gang stalking with her, and she was walking out under the fake sun, and she hides her face behind her phone right here. This is the same fake sun that's over this same apartment building hours earlier at 8 o'clock in the morning. Look at the documentation that I've already published on the website today on the P.O.C. YouTube channel. And everything is shared onto the Google Drive. Look at my website for the P.O.C. This is evidence that's going to prosecute the state of California, and it's also going to inform you about demonic activity. The demon-possessed are targeting American citizens, seeking to murder and kidnap them, and they are also doing it while seeking to make a profit. That's the government that's engaged in the organized crime of gang stalking. The businesses in the state that are engaged in the organized system of gang stalking, and it is disincentivizing and stripping such businesses like Avenat Capital Management. It is currently, again, 3:55 p.m. This is P.O.C. This is a sex offense that a landlord's being documented for engaging in. Doing so while it is inhumane and also unconstitutional, it's government action as well. And the entity that is acting in the shoes of the state is also going to be criminally and civilly prosecuted for that which is engaging in maliciously while wanting to have make a dollar. That's what Avenat Capital Management represents. All right, this is the engineered light that's appearing on my hand, while the fake sun is down there. Nonetheless, that it's still over the same apartment building, but it's down there. So, and this is engineered light that's just appearing on the wall out of nowhere. This is engineered light that's still framing the door, okay? The entity is maintaining engineered light that you can see my shadow is illuminated above my head. All right, and this is engineered light that's touching all over the blinds. This is the magnified size of the shadow on the same patio door, because this is speaking to the fake sun that's not in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens. A demon is stalking in the path with their hazard lights on while engaging in psychological torture, and the ongoing amplified noise of pacing and booming and earthquake-like conduct is ongoing. This is the ongoing program of psychological torture by a community of sex offenders, because they're also monitoring my genitalia in the bathroom. stalking at all moments, and also monitoring at all moments, including in a private space. The sex offense doesn't stop at the doors of the bathroom where everyone's like, okay, stop, turn off the surveillance, let's fly away by helicopter, let's give her a moment inside of the restroom. That's not what's happening. Those sex offenders stalking in the path using their hazard lights, it's light activity, while a demon is having a field day under the fake sun and engineered light, monitoring and psychologically torturing, and that's a community, an entity doing so. And while you see the airport hovering over the apartment complex, it's the prosecution of Avanath Capital Management. All of their employees at the venue are going to prison, and everybody physically surrounding Unit 51, where the fake sun rises and sets by me, which is juxtaposed with the pattern that's already seen at Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles, which is never going to have the sun sitting on the roof for the duration of the day, like you see again in yet another video. Evidence of what is impunity and malice, while the entity is monitoring evidence, knowing that a woman is protesting the fact that you're stalking her and monitoring her. This is a violent sex offender, and that predator that was in their vehicle keeping their foot on the brake while the entity amplified train activity, while the demons kept pacing into the parking lot, while they began driving out of the parking lot in their vehicles. That's ongoing impunity. Okay, the entity that acts with this impunity, this is relevant to how the entire entity is going to be prosecuted. And the demons in units 33 through 64, you're talking about what is an enhanced term, years in federal prison, an enhanced term. And I also want to be clear, it actually is going to save money, while the elderly, they are already at an advanced age, where they go to prison, and it's actually going to cost the state less, and that's, again, taking on an obligation, a responsibility that you don't have, but they're not going to get any federal housing benefits. And the entity that is engaging in what is you heard right now, responding to what she knows is being documented about her, that's why she's going to prison. And it costs less to keep terrorists like this out of housing benefits, out of communities where they're targeting, just like the sex offenders are, because she's engaging in what is that pounding conduct, while that demon was stalking in the path with light activity, because that's what she was doing. Those are sex offenders gang stalking with Avanath Capital Management. Avanath Capital Management threatens my life, psychologically tortures me, continuously threatens, retaliates, and seeks to intimidate me, while Avanath Capital Management is monitoring every moment of my documentation, every syllable that I utter, while Avanath Capital Management's property is a facilitating venue so that the elderly, where it is cheaper to keep them in federal prison at their advanced ages, okay, than it is to allow them to be free and prostitute the system where they're sitting around stalking all day with no job, while the government flies over and gang stalks through the community that comes onto the ground. The federal housing program is a reason for financing federal group stalking in the city of Ontario, and that has to stop, because Ontario is group stalking, period. Second of all, Avanath Capital Management is a domestic enemy that shall not be permitted to participate any longer in such federal housing programs. Third of all, the elderly that are gang stalking here, it costs less money to put them all in federal prison. All right, it is currently, again, 3:59 p.m. and the amplified booming noise, that is the P.O.C. that the entity is engaged in as I'm documenting on an ongoing basis, as I use my devices, as I document by name and company name, and speaking to, like I said, prolonged prison terms, and it's cheaper to keep them in prison than it is to have them free, and the entity is engaged in earthquake-like conduct. That's what the public is engaged in, coming onto the grounds, using their hazard lights, stepping on their brake lights, just driving through, strolling through. 7-Eleven, the people of the state are gang stalking, while engineer light and possible light activity is dynamic across that 7-Eleven. They're monitoring. They're all stalking as a community. All of these demons over 55 are going to prison. Okay, and Avanath Capital Management, gang stalking, and a wealth of documentation. Like I said, the city of Ontario that came and did their so-called inspection, the entity was gang stalking as the government acting with the people. That's the government acting vicariously at a facilitating venue, not a private residence. And the fake sun is over this same venue at 9 o'clock in the morning, where I'm at this front door and I'm documenting them. 9 o'clock in the morning. It is currently, again, 4 o'clock in the evening. And the entities engaged in psychological torture, Avanath Capital Management acting with impunity, gang stalking with the public that comes onto the grounds to engage in that P.O.C. They're not free to be here. They're not free to live here. They're not free to work here. They're not even free to be around here. That's the reality of that, okay? So I just want to be clear. The ongoing earthquake-like conduct, that's criminal conduct that Avanath is engaging in. All right, this one right here in 55, you've seen her gang stalking. She's going to prison. That's license 5WUB715. Here's the shadow here, and here's my shadow here. While the city of Ontario engages and employs psychological torture while contributing to public corruption, because gang stalkers like the demons in Unit 41 that have their children, they don't like hearing the fact that they're losing their children. They don't like hearing the fact that they're going to prison. And the government employs psychological torture, gang stalking through the residents who are all going to prison. They're all going to prison. Okay, and that's the significance of gang stalking in the parking lot with your hazard lights on, with your brake lights on, doing so in concert with the demon-possessed pilots using planes and helicopters. That's why they're going to prison. MARMMAK, federal prison, P.O.C. It is currently 4:26 p.m. This is documentation of federal group stalking and monitoring, and I continuously gather more damning evidence, and it's highly probative, and it's also supportive of the prolonged years in prison that the people of the state deserve, and that the government itself, government actors deserve. And so this is why I continuously add onto the podcast that I did already publish today, but I will be adding onto it clearly. By the time you hear this, it's obviously already added on, but that's why I've already published it before. But I keep gathering video evidence of the entity, which is evidence of the state's refusal to stop stalking that's relevant to the prosecution of the government. Okay, so the government, again, has a responsibility. So this is exposure for public corruption. And what I'm showing and proving to the feds is that my case is already proven. I'm going well beyond that. I'm proving to the feds that while the government, the state government, was monitoring and stalking in furtherance of trying to murder and kidnap me based on the solicitation of a psychopath and a career sex offender, that is Tracy Banks, who literally put up her daughter, her relative, for profit. All right. And so this is why you have strangers that are acting as state actors, not private citizens. And that is all tied together through that specific environment. And so as I'm documenting that, I'm capturing video after video, which is evidence of the state government that refused, and both expressly and impliedly refused and communicated an impermissible threat that the federal government is going to prosecute the state for. And that is state actors such as the people of the state at Woodside Senior Apartments, who, again, at 4:28 p.m. while I'm documenting the demon that's over 55, she puts peroxide in her hair. You can see her gang stalking under the fake sun after 2 o'clock in the afternoon while it's hovering over the same apartment building. The demons that are in units 33 through 48, that's where the fake sun is planted. It's the second to last building. When you look at the aerospace picture that I do provide, it's like where you can see an overarching angle of the property. There are 4 buildings, and the building that I'm in is the last building that is adjacent to a brick wall behind units 49 through 64. The building right in front of that is units 33 through 48. That's where the entity keeps the fake sun, right over me, in alignment to me at the south side of this building, where units 33 through 48, until what is the north end of the building, which is units 33 through 48. That's where the entity keeps the fake sun, over that building, in alignment to me. As I advance from the door of Tracy's apartment, the fake sun, as you've already seen, advances to stay in front. And that's how you have it at the same position at 9 o'clock in the morning that it is at 4:30 in the evening. That's how you get that, because it's unnecessarily stationary, staying at the same place. And you're also looking at what is the tactic of stalking with the fake sun, just remaining over and moving as I move. And that's how I'm able to do screenshots such as the fake sun out over me in the parking lot at 9:30 in the morning, and also in the evening while I'm staying inside of the apartment and I'm capturing the same parking lot vantage point, and you're seeing the same fake sun. This is the P.O.C. where the demons are gang stalking through this bleach blonde. I don't think it's blonde. I think this is an elderly woman. She must put peroxide in her hair. Nonetheless, this is a demon, very mentally deranged, which even the audible activity of this demon-possessed person is, you are deducing mental illness. So this is the ongoing criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, which is also shared by the state that is gang stalking. The engineer light is a criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, while the population is coming onto the grounds and gang stalking, like I just captured video of, and doing so while psychological torture. This is an ongoing inhumane criminal act that a population is sharing in. So you've got a stalker that's in the parking lot creating light activity, stalking in the path with the method of light. It's criminal in a specific environment. It's not free. And it's not something that's just random and something that has nothing to do with anything. I've shown you the specific environment. And so now you're able to hone in and recognize the malice of demons that presuppose you have no idea what they're doing and who they're doing it to. Okay, so this is the ongoing inhumanity that Avaneth Capital Management is practicing as a community. In the video that I captured, you will see Avaneth Capital Management employee crossing path under the fake sun. And I actually captured screenshots of just reminiscent of what I've already documented. The Ontario Police Department is an established domestic terrorist. This is an enemy of the state, and that they are going to be disbanded for that and more. All right, but it is sufficient that a police department is anti-American in order to shut them down. Okay, that's a domestic enemy that shall be no more. They will be, they are subject to what is disbanding. I continuously accumulate evidence speaking to the entirely illegitimate agency that has been engaged in decades of murdering and kidnapping people and exercising authority under the law that it doesn't have. I am just the first one to prove it and prosecute them. And also, it's embarrassing that stalkers are shown to be stalkers because this is supposed to be something that no one's ever even able to allege. And even if they do, you're automatically supposed to be discarded as suffering from some mental illness. So the entity never planned for, clearly, as you can see, through what is just ongoing berserk conduct that you're accumulating time in federal prison for. That's the absence of any alternative plan. When your psychological torture tactics don't stop the evidence, it doesn't under any circumstance affect the weight of the evidence. It actually confirms the allegations of the target individual. It serves to accumulate more and more time for the entire entity that's being prosecuted. So I just want to be clear, all of this is equating to the removal of a corrupt government official, and that is Paul Leon. And this is, again, not normal criminal conduct. And by normal, I mean, this is not just your ordinary criminal conduct. You know, people are imperfect. People make bad decisions. Not everybody that has committed a crime is a bad person. Also, I want to state that. Again, obviously, there are different types of crimes. But I want to be clear. This criminal system is unique. It's satanic. And it is for the purpose of murdering people, of kidnapping people, of trafficking people, just making them disappear, just doing whatever you want with their lives and stealing their property, stealing their identity and doing so, making as much money as you can before you kill this person, before you kidnap them, and then defame them with a criminal record or defame them with mental illness. This is the purpose of the government engaging in this system of domestic terrorism. And so you have the unemployed, the elderly, Woodside Senior Apartments, which is, again, managed by a corrupt company, Avanath Capital Management, and it is shown as corrupt because of the malice that you are aware of. Because the fake sun remains over this specific building where I'm located at the property, not just in the general sky space over the whole property. It's not high and elevated to a degree to where it's over everyone where you can, no. It's very specific. It's hunkered down over the roof of the apartment building that I am facing, such that that light source can engage in what I've shown as a pattern amongst the stalkers who are following me around in the state of California, monitoring a demon-possessed population. They are the light source is hunkered down on the roof, and yet the building doesn't set on fire. Neither do the planes that fly under it, or directly through it, or directly on top of it. While you are looking at a stationary light source, you saw today the Ontario International Airport flying over where there's no terminal. That's going to make sense of why they're at that low elevation, why you can even hear it. Why it's even appearing, not coincidentally with simultaneity. I show you screenshots of what I'm doing on my phone for a reason. As I capture a third-party gang stalker, not a legitimate business, engaging in a sex offense, not the lawful operation of any contracted services with Avanath. It is an admission to gang stalking, while Avanath has any agreement with any third-party company to provide any services, engage in any work on the grounds. The landscaper, the painter, the employee himself that lives in Unit 41. This is both an employee who's going to be prosecuted and also a resident. He's going to be prosecuted on both bases. It's intolerable facilitation. He's going to prison. All right. But I want to be clear. While I'm documenting that, you are looking at malice. And this is putting into context what's going on when you are giving ear to the allegations of an unsophisticated targeted individual, the ordinary person that may not be as eloquent and capable of articulating what it is that they are experiencing, going through, what they're suffering. Okay, so my ability to point that out to you is for you to understand what the ordinary person is experiencing and how inhumane it is. Okay, so I want you to take your mind. I need you to go with me and imagine something. This apartment complex, the building that I'm in, the apartment that I'm in, this is akin to being locked up in a prison. Okay, except that I'm able to open the front door and walk outside and document the evidence of the criminality that I'm surrounded by. But this is akin to a prison. Inside of this apartment building is torture. They're torturing an American citizen, and they're doing so while elements of monitoring are underway. So any stalker, because the entire city is stalking. The entire city is stalking while a fake sun remains over me at the apartment complex. They're all stalking. None of them have any right. When you're understanding what is stalking, the government is surveilling someone. The government has, under constitutional law, the government has no right to do that. So now you're understanding the false premise under which people are surrounding an American citizen, wanting to appear malice, like they are in a substantially similar position as that target individual. In other words, having a right to be inside of that apartment, at that property, shopping at that store, driving on that road, visiting their friend at that place. Well, even though the target individual doesn't have any friends. All right. But I just want to be clear. The only person that's not engaged in surveillance is the only one that has a constitutionally protected right to be there. The entire state, as the evidence shows, is gang stalking. It's a malicious statewide system. The mayor has no right to be at the city hall. That's how specific I'm getting. It's a system of surveillance under the laws as they exist. The entity is exploiting constitutional protections and constitutional bases of authority that it does not have. It doesn't have. So when the entity is on video showing severe mental illness as an entity, not just an elderly demon gang stalking in Unit 55. Oh no, in my video, the demon that's engaging in what is earthquake-like conduct, whether or not it's picking up in the speaker, the blinds, the windows are shaking and the blinds are being adjusted, whatnot, with regard to the vibration of the building, while this demon is engaging in what is ongoing monitoring conduct. But the purpose of the monitoring, the harassment that I'm subject to, the interference with quiet enjoyment, the terrorizing pattern of conduct occurring with simultaneity to what it is that I'm speaking about that the demons don't like. So they resort to psychological torture, such as loud booming inside of the apartment, because I'm speaking to the reality that the federal government is spending less money with regard to punishing the elderly at Woodside Senior Apartments than permitting them to go on and prostitute the system somehow. That's not going to happen. They're never going to be qualified for federal housing benefits anywhere, nor are you avoiding federal prison for living at a crime scene. Not only are they living at a crime scene, but they're living at a crime scene and they're refusing to stand down. So you're going to prison because you're already engaged in domestic terrorism with the state. You're going to federal prison because you refuse to stop facilitating stalking by the state. You're going to federal prison because of the impunity with which you are gang stalking an American citizen. You're going to federal prison because you are a threat to the public and yourself, as an entity is monitoring the evidence. And this is the state that is monitoring evidence that uses the people of the state to psychologically torture the one whom they're targeting. All right. That's what's happening. It's torture. And so while you have a third party that is under a light source that is stationary over a specific building at a specific property in a specific location in a city in the state, you're going to prosecute the state of California based on the illusion that is presented with regard to the malice exhibited in targeting someone. The entity is acting, all of these demons are acting like this is the natural environment, like this is the sun, that there's nothing to see here, folks. Everybody's just living their life. I'm free to go to work. I'm free to come and visit my friend. I'm free to come give my grandma muffins. I'm free to walk my dog. I'm free to ride my bike. I'm free to drive on the street. I'm free to shop at the 7-Eleven across the street. I'm free to fly my planes over the apartment complex. I'm free to fly this helicopter over this apartment complex. I'm free to do so even as you document what is evidence about what you may suspect about harassment and whatnot by helicopters that are not speaking to you on any loud speaker phone, and they're not coming and knocking on your door. This is all speaking to breaking down the system of federal group stalking and monitoring, as I've already shown. But I want to be clear. It is, first of all, required that you're going to federal prison. This has already been prosecuted. Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles, it's going to be uniform treatment under federal law. They're going to federal prison. The entire property at Alvarado Gardens is going to prison as the property manager, subject to 24-hour surveillance, living there and working there. They're gang stalking me in concert with the Los Angeles Police Department, with the city of Los Angeles, with every every third-party company that was contracted with the landlord that I was employed by, and they were gang stalking me as I hired them. I worked with them, and they were gang stalking me while I was in the workplace on the job. So I already know what Linda Reyes is doing. She's doing it as a third-party group stalker, and she's going to prison for it. I know what Avanath Capital Management is doing, and their employees at Woodside are going to federal prison for it. I already know what these residents are doing. They're gang stalking, and they're doing so while they're maliciously living at a crime scene that no one's ever supposed to identify or reconcile or notice or state anything about. So what that there's a sun in Florida and it's sitting over the building at Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario. And you can also, if you are looking at video evidence of what's on YouTube, for example, you'll see them publicizing their own businesses or government functions, and you'll see a fake sun over them when you're aware of my evidence that shows how could there be more than one sun. So what that you see that? That's what the entity, all of this is coexisting when you're prosecuting the state, but it is evidence of what is supernatural. Now, this supernatural aspect regarding evidence of what is malice by a government that is indeed targeting through satanic methods. It is satanic, the amplified audible activity inside of this apartment. It is satanic, the engineer light inside of this apartment. It is satanic, the stationary presence of the sun over the units 33 through 48 in alignment with my person, where I remain inside of apartment 51 at Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California. From the beginning to the end of the day, it is supernatural that I have evidence as specific as same time of year, even down to same time of day, that it is remaining over me in an entirely different region. That's supernatural as well. This is relevant to, again, prosecuting the malice and the impunity of demons that are over 55, like the demon with license plate 5WUB715. She is, and as well as all of the other angles of the state, I captured for illustrative purposes what the Ontario Police Department, who represents the city of Ontario, which represents the state of California. Okay, so I took in screenshots from 4:03 p.m. This is denoting what is ongoing psychological torture while the entity is monitoring me. As I am publishing and capturing evidence, I am subject to ongoing torture. And the reality of it, the inhumanity of it, is not only is the community gang stalking as a corrupt landlord and as a corrupt society, the people that are living here are stalking as a way of life. They're stalking you with the community that comes onto the grounds to participate in it. And so this is the animalistic and barbaric conduct of those that are engaging and deriving pleasure in inhumanity. The third party with license MARMMAK, I believe. Let me correctly cite that because I have a point to make with this. I believe you can still hear me right now. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to review evidence. The license plate of the third party that is gang stalking while engaged in psychological torture, and the ease with which a terrorist can do so by merely driving onto the grounds. This is license plate MARMMAK. Not only, the reality is that the entity is not only gang stalking, the entity is engaging in a position of control, an illusion of control, meaning not control to the extent that they're stopping the prosecution, they're not stopping the exposure, they're not stopping the extent of punishment and public shame. They're not stopping any of that. But the entity is in control of what is everything that I am doing and everything that I am documenting. The state, from the beginning to the end, has been examining, monitoring all of the documentation. This is the state government, in other words, that is communicating to the federal government that it does not care, that it is being exposed for public corruption, and that it refuses to stop targeting an American citizen. This is the state government communicating that. While the police on yet another day are gang stalking with the public, who are free to come onto the grounds of a facilitating venue, not a private property, not a legitimate business that is a landlord at this property. Aveneth Capital Management is practicing psychological torture as a means of business while torture is underway inside of its apartment building. And this is why you have the third party license MARMMAK, the ease with which, the convenience to just park your vehicle in alignment to the apartment that I'm inside of, creating a method of light activity, flashing lights in the path under the fake sun, which is engineered light. None of it is sunlight where they have this flashing light on. And at nightfall, by the way, when they have headlights on, it's not headlights that create the magnifies of multiple shadows. This is all malice. Satan is using people, and Satan is also present through the environment. That's what I'm showing you. That's how you're looking at on its face. You're seeing the sun and the sky, but I'm also showing you, look at this. You're seeing sunlight through a peephole. That's not sunlight. It's in your face. This is satanic. So you have what is significant. The flashing of light is light activity for purposes of monitoring, and it's highly demonic. While the demon-possessed engage in this pattern of being in my path with some method of creation of light, with either your hazard lights, turning on their headlights. You can turn your headlights on and off. You can take your foot on and off the brake. You can keep your foot on the brake while a method of audible activity is underway. The torture that Avaneth Capital Management is engaging in, as I step out and I capture video evidence of what is the fake sun that is over the same apartment building, advancing as I advance away from Unit 51 where I remain inside, where there is no coexisting maintenance in a natural environment, that the sun is over Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles. But that's what my evidence is already showing on the record. It's already on the record. Where all of this is surrounding, all of these facts are surrounding. This is greater context regarding what is being shown to you when you're seeing someone with their hazard lights on in the path, in that engineered environment, while I'm documenting what is ongoing loud noise, which is harassment. It's interference with quiet enjoyment, contractually speaking. But the reason, the significance, the context regarding elements of monitoring, audible activity, light activity, relevant positioning. What is relevant positioning? It's just being there. And when you're in this engineered environment, you're stalking. The entity, the government that is stalking American citizens and doesn't want it to be seen as stalking, is stalking through residents that live around you. But you are not benefiting from the constitutional protection of being at some private property where you would claim you could not possibly be stalking. That's a delusional psychopath. That's Satan. That does not have a counter argument prepared. So then you get into where you can see the mental illness, and you can see the obsession with me when you've got a demon doing laps for hours as I'm documenting on my phone. When you've got demons flying in circles repeatedly in helicopter. When you've got demons going berserk with train and plane activity, in the all manner of amplified noise, because I'm documenting them. And there was no plan B. The entity has no alternative plan with regard to breaking down how their system operates of monitoring, the demonic nature of it, what it's the key features of it. You're always looking at, it's always happening in an engineered environment. Engineered meaning this is entirely manufactured. This is entirely malicious. This is not sunlight. This is peculiarized light. And it's significant that it's shooting through a peephole. That's relevant to who's in the parking lot with a method of flashing light. This is a pattern of conduct that I've shown for years. This is why I document on video for the world to witness. The license MARMMAK, the Arizona plate, this Latina female, engaging in barbaric behavior, is a demon-possessed psychopath that is actually deriving pleasure while she thinks in her mind no one knows what she's doing. So she drives up, she comes to Woodside Senior Apartments, she parks her vehicle in the parking lot, leaves her flashers on. This is not caution with regard to other people, it's light activity in the path, while the demon in unit number 55, as I'm documenting on my device, what is stalking me with amplified audible activity, torture, which is again being shared by the entity, is pacing all around in traffic. The entity lives all around in relevant position, not just the entire city, but let's be very specific. All of the demons that live at Woodside Senior Apartments, all the demons that live off of G Street, F Street, Vine Avenue, and all of the houses that surround the shopping plaza that is what would be east of Woodside Senior Apartments, they're all actually a society of demons that are focused on me. And you know that there is this joint focus as a society because an entire fake sun remains over me. This is defying what is the illusion that people are going about minding their business and don't know you, you're strangers, they're not concerned about you. That's a lie. Okay, Satan is real, and Satan is using a population, and they are obsessed. And you also know that because the government that's going to produce its records, they're going to produce the names, they are going to provide the information themselves. As clearly as you hear me speaking these words, the demons that are gang stalking and playing in helicopter are going to prison. And so as clear as the demon with license 5WUB715, whose license plate I know today, she's going to be locked up. And the demons that are gang stalking with her, the demons that come onto the grounds like license MARMMAK with an Arizona plate on this dark blue Mazda, engaging in torture, and the ease with which a population can do so because they're in an engineered environment where the fake sun remains over me all day long, and that which is not sunlight, it's peculiar light, it's engineered light. I've referred to it as it's impossible light. It's impossible to naturally occur. That's why I've come up with this naming convention, because it's literally by definition. This is not normal light. Sunlight doesn't make your shadow appear upright at a distance, magnified in size, multiple. That's not sunlight. Because so it is relevant what you're seeing the demon possessed do, and it is documented by images and video by myself for years. They are always stalking in the path with a method of light, flashing light, a method of light activity, chiefly in California, using vehicles. They even use signage. All right. They even do it by multiple vehicles. If not flashing light, just having multiple vehicles drive by, you have the same effect. Light one vehicle after another, the same pattern of conduct, the same pattern with this light. While psychopaths are torturing one person together, and it's hidden inside of the chambers of an apartment. That's what I want you to understand and appreciate, because that's what they're doing. And that's why I am so passionate about going out and getting these sex offenders by license plate and by image. That's why I'm so passionate about identifying terrorists like Paul Leon and Mike Lorenz. That's why I am so determined to identify corrupt gang stalking companies like Avanath Capital Management and Linda Reyes, whose job it is to gang stalk someone, not manage a property. She's concerned with what I'm doing, and everything about what I'm doing is the actual focus of these demons that are contracted with Avanath. Let me be clear, all these contracts, all this business, all this compensation that they're receiving, it's a means of admission in federal court. You were present, you were facilitating, you were gang stalking at the facilitating venue, and you made money while you were doing it. That business is going to be prosecuted, and those employees, those independent contractors, they are being prosecuted. While psychological torture is underway inside of the chambers of an apartment, and they think that they're just going to paint a building, they're going to paint a curb, they're going to pace back and forth to their vehicle in alignment to me under a fake sun in concert with the state that's gang stalked with plane and helicopter, with a population that's free to come onto the grounds and surround the ground. This is how they're gang stalking together, and the elements light activity, relevant positioning, and amplified audible activity are cyclically underway, ceaselessly underway. It is psychological torture, and it is a crime committed by a community. And I want to be clear, while the entity now never planned for this type of strip down of its satanic system of targeting someone, now you are able to see, as I've stripped them of that, and I've given you a bare bones analysis, this is what the demons are doing. This is what they're doing. Now you're able to see even more clearly, because you can see it when I break their system down, but now you can even more clearly see their psychotic mindsets, their obsession with me. When they don't have an alibi, when there is no other explanation for, well, why are you being so loud, being so old? Why is the government flying in circles over this apartment for old people? How come the old people don't mind? How come management itself doesn't present it? Because it's vibrating the apartment that I'm in. But see, the gang stalkers assume because no one else says anything, it's not happening. That's the entity that's targeting an American citizen, but that doesn't work. That's why you document Satan, because Satan is a liar. Satan is using an entity against one person, where your claims go unaddressed and the claims of the majority, the demons. Factions are very dangerous. All right. This is a faction of terrorists. Okay, who in the corrupt operation of the government that's targeting the majority control. So where everyone is claiming that you are crazy, so be it. And that's exactly what the government relies on through the lying medical professionals who have no relationship with me, never met me. And if they did, I was kidnapped and I refused to talk to them. But they're relying on what is the camera that has no audible documentation. So merely them being in my presence, and I'm holding up signs showing my bar number, that I'm an attorney, that I've been kidnapped, that this is a criminal act, that this is defamation. This is what they're relying on with regard to establishing an entirely manufactured relationship with the mental health community in order to kidnap me. They don't look into the details, because this is what the corrupt courts are relying on in order to get you where they want you. All right. This is the entity and that's just the more sophisticated aspect of gang stalking by the corrupt courthouse. It starts with the police. It starts with them. It doesn't turn legitimate when you're handed over to the sheriff. It doesn't turn legitimate when you're handed over to the courts. It certainly doesn't turn legitimate when in the courts, the gang stalkers are bearing false witness. They're manufacturing information. They're using what is their system of the faction is speaking against the minority, the one who's being targeted. That does not equal criminal justice. That does not equal a diagnosis for mental illness, where the entity is in no position, by the way, to diagnose. They're in no position to exercise any authority under the law. This is the reality. And in the specific environment, they're not free to be at Woodside Senior Apartments. They're not free to work at Woodside Senior Apartments. They're not free to live at Woodside Senior Apartments, which is a crime scene, where the government is hiding behind the mask of the population. And they like to add to the soundtrack the helicopter activity while they're hiding behind the mask of the people of the state, the faces that you're looking at. The amplified audible activity, you can even see the helicopter flying over while they're hiding behind the mask, maintaining presence all around you 24 hours a day, the people that are living and working at the crime scene. While you have things that are clearly seen, as it's pointed out to you, an entirely engineered environment, where that which is not sunlight provides context regarding to this method of flashing of light, to the illumination in the apartment of engineered light, to the magnification of shadows of demons who are stalking you. They're all going to prison for this. And they have the fullness. It's foolish as it is to put your hands in blood after you commit murder and you don't want the government to know that you committed that murder. Why would you put your hands in the blood? Why would you do that? And then put your hand, you're literally leaving, here I am, come find me. I'm the one that did it. I'm the one that's guilty. This is how foolish they are. I am literally capturing the evidence. It is as plain as it's going to be. We're going to revisit the evidence, and there's a wealth of it. And as clearly as the entity acted with this impunity, that is relevant to how long and how hard they get the book thrown at them, because they're going to prison at Woodside Senior Apartments. They're going to prison regarding the Ontario Police Department. They're going to prison regarding the Ontario International Airport. These are just state actors. This third party licensed MARMMAK, she's going to prison. She comes onto the grounds and she is aiding the government in executing psychological torture against an innocent American citizen that is being targeted at Avanath Capital Management's Woodside Senior Apartments. It's criminal activity that's underway. And you are able to identify it on its face through what is the supernatural, the fake sun. Because that's not the natural environment that's coexisting 3 hours ahead in New York and what would be in Texas and what would be in Minnesota, while it's stationary over the apartment building in Ontario at Woodside, specifically over the demons in units 33 through 48 from the beginning until the end of the day. Where planes are hovering over, where helicopters are hovering and sounding as I document with simultaneity to what I recite about them. The state government from the beginning has communicated to the federal government. This is relevant to how long every police officer is going to prison. The government has communicated from the beginning while engineer light is illuminating Tracy Banks's patio door, getting brighter, and the demons are pacing on the sidewalk so that their shadows are moving across the patio door. The state government has communicated a refusal. And I want to be clear, this is an illusion. No state government is telling the federal government in the United States that you're not going to abide by the law. Because you did that, and it's a matter of evidence. You're going to prison for it. And you're going for a long time. Gang stalking is akin to attempted murder. It's a program of psychological torture. And by the way, the entity has engaged in multiple kidnappings. Engage in what is physically harming me while you're gang stalking. This is criminal conduct that's committed by a public entity, not an individual. Gabriel Arriaga at Alvarado Gardens engaged in what is an assault and battery committed by an entity. And that same entity is gang stalking in Ontario, because Los Angeles County and San Bernardino County, Ontario, California, and Los Angeles, California, the city of Ontario and the city of Los Angeles is the same entity. The same entity that put their hands on me, which is a matter of published video evidence, is still refusing to stop gang stalking me and threatening and psychologically torturing me with third parties such as licensed MARMMAK, and she's going to prison for it. That's impunity. While she is a part of the same entity that is putting their hands on me, stalking me everywhere that I am going, engaging in repeated acts of kidnapping and criminal defamation, and refusing to cease to engage in this while maintaining complete control regarding monitoring every bit of evidence about itself while it's being captured and while it's being published for the federal government's use, because the corrupt courts are being prosecuted as well. So the entity, again, fails to understand and appreciate how damning everything that it's doing, and the reason why the devices that are being used because the corrupt courts are not available for redress. And as you interfere with that prosecution of a state government, you're going to prison for it. I cannot put it any more clearly. Paul Leon, I want to be clear. This is a terrorist leader. He is not removed or exempted. Nobody has said that he is not going to be federally prosecuted or subject to prison. Nobody has said that Mike LORENZ is exempted and is not capable of being federally prosecuted for domestic terrorism. This is a government's crime through a population of literally psychopaths, including those over the age of 55. This demon sounds like she's throwing her body in the apartment above, because I'm speaking of the fact that it is less expensive to put the elderly at Woodside in federal prison. That's where they belong, and it's also economically beneficial. Absolutely. It is not the government's obligation to take care of any American citizen. That's not the premise that I'm coming from. My premise is that the elderly at Woodside Senior Apartments subject to prison in units 33 through 64, and everybody else at Woodside Senior Apartments, such as M.A.R.M.M.A.K., who came to Woodside Senior Apartments to gang stalk me with the police. You're talking about this may or may not be an elderly citizen, but I mean everyone in that position. Everyone that is gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department in real time, like I've documented in the parking lot. Okay, the circus of lights all over the walls while these demons are pacing around me in the parking lot under the fake sun, and the Ontario Police Department is gang stalking. They're going to prison, regardless of whether they live in units 33 through 64. They are going to prison as well. With regard to the demons at Woodside Senior Apartments, they're all going to be prosecuted under the Violence Against Women Act, first of all. They are losing their federal housing benefits, and they're never receiving any housing benefits because of the fact that they shall be prosecuted terrorists. They'll be prosecuted as sex offenders. Federal group stalking and monitoring is an egregiously violent sex offense, and that's exactly how it's going to be prosecuted. And it's sexual violence that the government is practicing for no legitimate purpose. And the government is doing that and encouraging that amongst the public. All right. And this is how you have just all manner of third parties and state actors, including while they're making money, such as those that are contracted to do any work on the grounds at the property of Avanet Capital Management, Woodside Senior Apartments, like I documented on an ongoing basis at the manager at Speaker Companies, Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles. Where the sun is rising and setting at Alvarado Gardens, it is not at Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California. Where the sun is rising and setting at one apartment complex, like I document at Woodside Senior Apartments and Alvarado Gardens, it is not the natural environment. It is probable cause, in other words, to investigate. It is probable cause to prosecute based on the allegations of an ordinary target individual that would assert that the government is harassing them, that the government is targeting them, that strangers know their information and know where they're at, are following them, are attacking them, and they don't know why. They don't know these people. This is the probable cause to do so, and it is found in the specific environment as I have termed it, because no natural environment includes the rising of the sun on the east side of Woodside Senior Apartments units 33 through 64 and setting on the west side of Woodside Senior Apartments units 33 through 64, the same building, the same address, and I'm looking at the same light source in alignment to me. While demons share in psychological torture, the light activity that's created with simultaneity to amplified audible activity occurring inside of an apartment building, which are the elements of light activity, relevant positioning, and audible activity. That which is designed to torment and harass and terrorize and psychologically torture an American citizen whom they are particularly hostile toward because I am prosecuting them. That's what the third party with license M.A.R.M.M.A.K. and what you'll see on video, this demon refuses to abandon her position. That's how vital and key and detailed everything that you're seeing around you is. It's not just random walking by. It's not just random traffic of a vehicle driving by. It's very detailed, demonic
conduct. These are demons driving by at the second that they drive by, pursuant to a pattern of conduct. Very precise. Somebody stopping in the middle of the street, getting out of their vehicle, going to their trunk, closing their trunk and getting back in their car to proceed driving by. They're stalking in the path. It's very precise what the demons are doing while they're monitoring. Presence around me is accomplished by being in the path, crossing my path. Standing in alignment is being in the path. And repeatedly crossing path is referred to as patrolling. You can do this as a group, one person after another crossing path. A whole bunch of pedestrians are patrolling. One person pacing back and forth, which looks a lot weirder. That's why the demons act as an entity, a group together. And you're looking at it on its face as traffic and pedestrians and the kids that are getting out of school that are just walking by Woodside Senior Apartments. Those little demons are monitoring. And the government practices sexual violence and psychological torture with them and through them, and they are aware of it. Demonic activity, demon possession is not limited to the age of majority. This is why corrupt government actors like Paul Leon must go. Why Mike Lorenz must go. This has been practiced for decades. For decades. So this is where you are looking at what is the inhumanity behind the criminal conduct. And you're literally putting your hands, your fingerprints in the blood and putting it on the wall for the feds to come and dust and know exactly who you are. While you're monitoring the evidence, while I'm on capturing video and the demons at Woodside Senior Apartments amplifying audible noise, like you're throwing your body around. It's audible activity under the fake sun in engineered light. Doing so while you're monitoring evidence. The government already knows that you're engaged in federal stalking, keeping me under surveillance on every device, on the internet, and the ways in which you're being monitored when you're on the internet, by the way. What I am documenting, what I am exposing about this public corruption in this system that's underway is you're experiencing it. You are being monitored on the internet. When you're on Facebook, when you're on YouTube and it shoots into an ad, it's a means of monitoring you. Even the content of the ads is a means of monitoring you. You've been given natural explanations about it regarding some algorithm. It's demonic. We have been being studied as human beings, the ways that your mind works, what it is that bothers you, what it is that you like. Even demons that are monitoring. That's what it is. And it's an obsession. Now, where the entity is being exposed in the way that I've exposed it, now you're looking at what are desperate demons that don't have any other means to engage in what they've been doing. The whole system is broken down about what the demon possessed are doing while they're gang stalking, while they're monitoring. In order to monitor me, you're stalking. You're not monitoring somebody and exercising a constitutionally protected right to be in anywhere around my path. You're stalking on public property that is the sidewalk. You're not protected. You're gang stalking. This is what the entity fails to recognize. But this is, again, stripping down the malice of a government. Yes, you are gang stalking where you live. Yes, you are gang stalking at what is, quote unquote, private property. It is designated as a facilitating venue where the specific environment is shown that is ripping the rug from underneath the feet of these demons that are conspicuously stalking American citizens, psychologically torturing them in doing so. And then when I have shown that, now you can see more clearly that they're psychopaths. They're mentally ill. You know that because I'm describing the system to you, and in your mind, before the evidence, you're like, "Wow, if this is true, that this is a very disturbed people, right?" So you're looking at the evidence. I've proven that's what they're doing, and with regard to proving the case against the state, you are witnessing and exposing. I'm exposing what is mental illness that wants to remain closeted. These are terrorists. These are psychopaths that are walking around free and have not been convicted of being a sex offender. They have not been convicted of a crime. They work at the school. They drive school buses. They work for the police department. They work for the sheriff's department. They work for the fire department. They work for the municipality. They do their little job. They empty the garbage. They go around painting buildings in the city, driving around in utility vehicles that belong to the municipality, and they're ticking time bombs. They're terrorists. They live at a senior citizen community, and they practice psychological torture as a way of life, which is, again, at a macro level, let's take a step back. This is a corrupt company, a landlord that practices psychological torture as a way of business, a means of business, a means of making money.
And take another step back at a greater macro level. This is a government that practices psychological torture as a means of targeting an American citizen through a population. Okay? This is what a government is practicing. Now, you are able to witness mental illness, severe mental illness, while the entity has no other way of engaging in the system, as I've shown what their patterns are. And then they're engaging in what is, now you're just putting your hands in the blood and putting your fingerprints all over the place because they see exactly what you are and they see what's wrong with you as you do what you're doing. All right. This is again, 5:11 p.m. Units 33 through 64, ongoing impunity. While the elderly that want to walk around on canes with swollen ankles, all right, and with balding heads, and the earthquake-like conduct that coexists with them. So they have this supernatural ability to create earthquakes and loud booming inside of the apartment. And it's not a coincidence when they live under a fake sun. This is gang stalkers over the age of 55. These are sex offenders monitoring my genitalia over the age of 55. These are government actors aiding the government in criminal surveillance. And they're also sex offenders and psychopaths, while I break down in great detail what is wrong with them. You are able to see severe mental illness when their system is broken down in the ways in which I've broken it down. And then you see them, as I document also, all right, the ongoing amplified audible activity, the demon in Unit 55 running around in circles. It's less than 600 square feet, the apartment. She's not going anywhere, okay? And she's running in circles for an hour. And it's amplified in volume inside of the apartment. That is the criminal conduct of Avanath Capital Management. But second of all, it is what is mental illness, unlocked, unveiled, revealed, okay, unmasked. Because that is a demon-possessed person that wants to appear but does not, under any circumstances, appear normal. And that's what's so malicious about the specific environment. And you're looking at light activity in the path, and in the chambers of these apartments, psychological torture of one person is what's underway. This is how American citizens that are being targeted by the state are suffering in this country. And it is barbaric. And in the same way that the state is communicating to the feds what is an illusion, no state government is telling any federal government that you're not going to abide by what the federal government says, period. Reference the doctrine of supremacy, period. They don't have a right to do anything that they're doing in addition to that. I have broken down what the government is doing. In acknowledgement of what the constitutional laws state, how law presently exists, and the malice where the entity is exploiting, abusing the Constitution. That's not public property that you have any right to be on. That's a facilitating venue. And you're stalking on the sidewalk. And you're conspicuously stalking to psychologically torture that person. And you're a government actor, doing so, aiding the state in doing so. And the more that you see the truth, the more that their mental illness is shown. Okay? Because the audible activity gets more and more psychotic. The light activity, the stalking in the planes and the helicopters becomes more and more obvious. The light activity, the engineer light, becomes more and more circus-like. This is mental illness that you are also deducing from the specific environment. The specific environment includes not only the identity of the fake sun that's idle all day long. The specific environment includes the maintenance of audible activity. That's literally what Avanath Capital Management is going to be prosecuted for psychological torture as a company. And then all the demons, the defendants in units 33 through 64 are going to federal prison for years of psychological torture. I've got video evidence that I'm still publishing onto YouTube from 2021. They've been gang stalking with the Ontario police that's being disbanded. They've been doing it for years. Everyone in units 33 through 64, they're facing years of federal prison. And they're already an advanced age, and it costs less to keep them in prison for however much longer that they have. And why am I speaking of human beings like this? Because these are threats to national security. I am more concerned about the unsuspecting, targeted individual, the child of God, the disciple of Christ, that this satanic system is seeking to target. That's who I'm focused on. That's who I'm speaking on behalf of. Even those who have yet to come to Christ. That's who the satanic system is targeting. In addition to those who have a constitutional right to not be targeted. And the government will come after you if you're found to be, one day you're part of the system and the next you're a threat to the system, the demons will take you out. So you benefit as well. But that's who I'm speaking on behalf. And it costs less to put these barbarians in federal prison and let their demise occur under those circumstances than to permit them to prostitute the system. And this is what Avaneth Capital Management is engaged in. They're gaining money from the feds. They are the demons that are gang stalking on their property. They're being paid a salary to engage in gang stalking. This is what Linda Reyes and all the other employees at Avaneth at Woodside represent. They're being aided in the payment of their rent while they're gang stalking with the government. And the government also goes out of its way to communicate a threat. But like I captured in video, gang stalking in helicopter. You can hear the helicopter activity. That's audible activity. As I'm walking, I'm being molested with, it's not even sunlight because that's not even the sun. But you can also see the concentrated engineer light as I have multiple shadows. And you can see the light activity creation through the demon with license plate MARMMAK. Who is creating a method of light activity, flashing of light, while I'm inside of the apartment, and all manner of psychological harm, a program of psychological torture, which is why I document 24-hour stalking with noise. It's also sexually perverted, sexually motivated, because the demon-possessed are so deceived by Satan. Satan has made sex offenders out of people that are lost, that need Christ Jesus. He's made them into sex offenders, practicing witchcraft, making them perverts, engaging in sex rituals with each other, but also masturbating, engaging in voyeurism, engaging in what is monitoring and invading the privacy of one, and gang stalking one, especially when they're in that position of vulnerability, being nude, being in a private space, engaging in private activity. Their genitalia is exposed. They're engaging in whatever it is inside of that private space. Satan has made people perverts in this regard. And this is the secrets regarding witchcraft. They are very much focused on your genitalia, as though you're sucking up and deriving some spiritual power. No, you're a pervert. You're a pervert. He has demented and twisted the minds. It's wicked, and it's sexually motivated monitoring conduct that men and women practice. And the men and women that are living in units 33 through 64 are going to prison for it. The unprecedented sex offense, that is the perpetual sex offense of federal group stalking and monitoring, they're going to prison for that. It is an offense that is worthy of federal prison, while they are engaging in the sexual violence as a means of a community, while the government practices witchcraft and hones in on your genitalia while doing it. Interested, spending thousands of dollars on using planes and helicopters, on using a whole community, corrupt businesses. That's how important your genitalia is. They're perverts. You go to prison for that. Your genitalia being a matter of public information, that's a federal offense that is worthy of federal prison, because you cannot quantify the harms. You cannot quantify that trauma, that invasion of privacy, that a government that's engaged in some sort of experiment because it's obsessed with you, because they're demon-possessed that fill the government, that are targeting and stalking you, and are engaged in psychological harm that's sexually motivated. It's prompted by your sexuality. All right? This is what they're doing while they are monitoring and gang stalking you. Okay? And in real time, 5:19 p.m. engineer light, which is, again, would be the product. You're going to follow the logic of the asinine conduct. The sun is in some sort of position where sunlight is still touching on Tracy Banks's patio door at Unit 51, where also the sunrise is present, as I'm capturing at 7:51 a.m. This is where the entity is gang stalking while their shadows are appearing across the patio door. This is the conduct of sex offenders that are monitoring the evidence of the fact that they practice sexual violence as a community, and then they go home to their kids, and then they go to work as a kindergarten teacher, and amongst driving school buses around, having access to children, while they are egregious sex offenders, perverts that have yet to be prosecuted for it. These are the ticking time bombs that fill the state of California, that fill the city of Ontario, that fill Woodside Senior Apartments. And these elderly sex offenders that are monitoring, engaging in psychological torture, this sex offender comes onto the ground to engage in monitoring, license. This is a sex offender obsessed with my genitalia. Okay? License MARMMAK. This is the reality of this woman. I am not into women. I don't welcome women that want to worship my genitalia either. But that's what this third party is engaged in and is facilitating as a state actor, not a private citizen, and has no constitutionally protected right to be on the grounds of the crime scene where the state's engaged in domestic terrorism. That's the prosecution of the entire venue, by the way, the entire neighborhood. 7-Eleven is gang stalking as a business. They're gang stalking by the employees. They're gang stalking by the customers at 636 North Vine Avenue. The government is gang stalking via 7-Eleven, via the consumers at 7-Eleven, and they knowingly do so, by the way. That's why the fake sun remains over me as I go across the street to that 7-Eleven. This is the illusion of a natural environment where a society is targeting somebody. And it is in furtherance of murder and kidnapping. And they also worship the genitalia of the one whom they're monitoring and stalking obsessively. This is where you are able to witness and see, and what is unveiled, the obsession of the demon-possessed. You not only know that they're stalking, you know that they're demon-possessed. You not only know that they're demon-possessed and that they're gang stalking, but you know that they're sex offenders, because you know what is inherent to the system of gang stalking, this practice of witchcraft where they're worshiping the genitalia of the one whom they're monitoring. And this is the secret of government actors like Mike LORENZ, like Jason Knighton, who kidnapped me, like Lester Keys, like Jay Burnett, these demons that are going to federal prison, like Alan D. WAPNER, who's the president of a corrupt airport, of the airlines, those that are these CEOs, these owners of these airports that are, this is not new that they're gang stalking at the Ontario International Airport. I am the first one that has proven it to a degree that it cannot be denied. This is not new. You have a community of elderly sex offenders. They're worshiping my genitalia. That's not a compliment. It's perverted and it's satanic. This worship with regard to these rituals that they engage in while they are focused on you, they're focused on your genitalia. You don't want to share your nude body. You don't want to be monitored in that space, but they are invading and piercing into your privacy because they're worshiping your genitalia. They're worshiping everything about your life, everything that concerns you. And then such sex offenders, such predators, are so psychotic that they're hostile and they inflict more torture while they're stalking in the parking lot with their hazard lights on, worshiping your genitalia and everything concerning you inside of an apartment, while they help a demon that's monitoring with amplified audible activity, while the government's sitting around in planes and helicopters, sitting around in fire trucks, ambulances, and police vehicles at their stations, maintaining ongoing intelligence regarding everything concerning me. This is how large this operation is. And I've already shown this as a matter of evidence. That's how I'm able to go from city to city. There is no sun that's ever over the Courtyard by Marriott in Monrovia, California, people. It's rising and setting at Woodside Senior Apartments over the demons in the units 33 through 64 in alignment to me. Because there is only one sun, there is therefore no sun that would be over Courtyard by Marriott in Monrovia, California. But that's exactly what I documented when I was in Monrovia. What's over me, seen outside of my hotel room in Monrovia, California at Courtyard by Marriott, a gang stalking company, like Aveneth Capital Management, a gang stalking company that's engaged in managing properties, that's going to be handled. Since this is what they do as a line of business, you shall not participate in any federal housing programs. You're a domestic enemy. You're a sex offender. You're into torturing American citizens. This is how you make your money. And this is exactly what justice requires. There is no sun that's over Courtyard by Marriott while it's hovering over units 33 through 48 at Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario. That which is seen outside of my hotel room window at Monrovia Courtyard by Marriott is not over the roof of Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California. Nor, like in Ontario, can you hear the 210 freeway inside of that hotel room. That was the demonic means of a population of sex offenders monitoring my genitalia, obsessed with everything concerning me, while an entire public entity stalks and targets you. It's also psychological torture, where the entity is engaging in employing impossible methods of noise and light activity. The entity is admitting that that population is stalking you. It's not making it realistic audible activity, but that population is admitting, yeah, we're stalking you. That's literally how that works legally. And it's also a threat by that population. Now, the entity is showing its mental illness while doing so. The entity is showing its mental illness while it has been stripped of the illusion
of being disinterested, of having no idea about what the ordinary target individual could possibly be alleging. This person must be mentally ill. This person is a criminal. This person is a threat to the public. While the entity is maliciously targeting, psychologically torturing, and manufacturing information while doing so. I also want to point something else out. In my circumstance, the entity not only manufactured information, they did it while they were kidnapping me. They did it through malicious actors such as Tracy Banks, who has been targeting me since I was a child. And so now as an adult, she has literally put up to the highest bidder with regard to those that will participate in it. And everybody that's helping her is going to be prosecuted. So they've sacrificed themselves. But I want to be clear. The entity manufactured information about me regarding mental illness, made it up while, notably, they were kidnapping me. The entity, under no circumstances, there is no history of any mental illness. There is no history of taking any medication. There is no history of criminal conduct. I am a legally trained lawyer, formerly practicing attorney, but having not paid my license fees. That's the only basis of not practicing law. And also because I care not to practice law with the state of California. I'm going to prosecute California. So it's a matter of principle not doing that anymore. And I don't need it to prosecute this criminal. Okay, they were gang stalking me while I was taking the bar exam. That's how much I disdain. I have no regard for what is the hypocrisy amongst those that are practicing law. All right, the entity is a bunch of demon-possessed gang stalking attorneys. There's nothing that is prestigious about that. All right, no matter what institution you went to, that's what you chose to do with that degree, with that knowledge. It serves Satan. You're worshiping my genitalia while you practice law. How about that? There's nothing prestigious about it. There's nothing elite about it. It's pathetic. It's disgusting. It's demented. All right. So the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct, having manufactured information while kidnapping me, while, again, engaging in things such as literally making up information about things that never happened, people that have never been in my presence. And anyone that was in my presence was gang stalking me inside of facilities where I was kidnapped. Okay, so the entity is always admitting to engaging in criminal conduct, everything regarding the paper trail that's already on the record. Okay, but with regard to the ordinary targeting individual, I want to state, let's say the entity is targeting somebody that has some sort of quote unquote, because there's an umbrella regarding mental health, and I have a belief system regarding that. There is a lot of curses that are being spoken that people accept amongst themselves. And this is built into what Satan's whole system, okay, where you speak curses over yourself, where many times it's a spirit. And it's once that spirit is gone, that so-called mental health condition disappears. Okay, this is how you have this obsession with stalking me. It's a spirit. Okay, they're demons. That's why they're worshiping my genitalia. That's why you have the elderly sacrificing their freedom, their last years in prison. That's why you have men and women that are both parents and also sex offenders worshiping the genitalia of another woman. You don't even know, both the husband and the wife, the girlfriend and the boyfriend, monitoring my genitalia together. Make that make sense. It's satanic. It's satanic. It's spiritual. It's born of spiritual darkness, and it's perverted at its core. And this is obsession that they are ashamed to be known for. They're embarrassed that it is publicized. Okay, they don't want that, but that's too late. That boat has sailed. And everyone knows it while you're living and working and present under a fake sun. All right, everyone knows it while you're over 55 and this is what you're doing at this point in life. It's both pathetic and it's also terrorizing for all of you who are witnessing me prosecute Satan, as Satan is using the state of California to target. All right, it's absolutely pathetic while you are using your life at this point to engage in stalking a woman who I don't welcome the advances of any woman, and I also don't welcome a woman worshiping my genitalia. I don't welcome a parental figure like Tracy Banks worshiping my genitalia. Okay, and she also does so by having sex with as many people that I know as possible. All right, and those people that have sex with her, they're sharing in that. It's a spirit, because none of them told me that they were having sex with each other. So they're all engaging in that together. This is the sex cult. This is a practice of witchcraft while they are targeting me. Okay, but again, in the natural, in actuality, as I am literally sealed with the Holy Spirit, what a bunch of demons choose to do with their genitalias amongst each other as they are witnessing has no effect on me.
Okay, their witchcraft practices and their sexual perversion, as they sin against their own bodies and they sin against God, and as they refuse to repent for it, they're going to answer for it. But I'm going to prosecute you because that's my job. Okay, the entities engaging in this, however, and sexual conduct, sexual activity, this focus on the sexual aspect, it's a part of what is witchcraft. It's a sexually perverted idolatry. Okay, I mean, it's absolutely out of the pit of hell. And the entity does so with regard to, as I was getting to, manufacturing on my behalf, manufactured totally made up information. All right. But there are American citizens, for example, say, if you have been clinically diagnosed with, let's say, bipolar disorder, and that may be something, again, like I said, a lot of things that are going on that are talked about that are just welcomed and accepted. A lot of these are curses that you speak over yourself. And I'm not saying that there are not people, that there may be imbalances and whatnot, but a lot of times when you walk with Christ Jesus, these are things that are oppressing you that are spiritual in nature. And I'm going to leave it at that without going very heavily deep. And I'm going to say, majority of the time, it is a spiritual condition. Okay, there are other things that can affect you, such as your diet, your lifestyle, whatnot, even the company that you keep. But I want to be clear, it's a spiritual condition. But even so, the ordinary target individual, where the entity had to make up information about me, they have to totally make it up. And they're going, everybody that had anything to do with that, they're going to prison for it. But manufacturing information is, I want to be clear, you can juxtapose that with the ordinary target individual that say that they have some sort of quote unquote mental health diagnosis of some sort of bipolar disorder, for example, if you've accepted that type of curse over yourself. All right. But even so, the pattern of conduct, the evidence of the criminal system, it exists on its own. Regardless of, in other words, it is not relevant whether there has been a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. The bipolar disorder of the target individual has nothing to do with the fake sun that is still sitting over them from the beginning to the end of the day. Understand the malice of a corrupt government that is seeking to falsely depict an American citizen. Your bipolar disorder, even if you have, in other words, a pre-existing mental health condition, it has nothing to do with the evidence that exists in isolation, apart from what the entity would like to make relevant, which is not relevant. And it will not become relevant because the entity is engaging in a pattern of conduct. Their mental instability is the cause for the stalking with activity conduct, for the stalking with light activity in the path, for the stalking and all of the spectacular means using planes and helicopters and the magical sound of train occurring inside of the depths of a house or an apartment, no matter how far away from the train tracks you are. That's speaking to mental illness. So I just want to be clear. Whereas in my circumstance, the entity totally manufactured information because of how desperate it is to silence me, to render illegitimate the evidence that the entity knew I was accumulating, exposing the fact that they are monitoring, targeting me, experimenting with my entire life. They are doing so with regard to manufacturing information in my circumstance, even in the circumstance where you have some sort of quote unquote mental health condition, if you accept that over yourself. If it's on paper, it still has nothing to do with the pattern of conduct, the evidence of the P.O.C, which exists in and of itself. And it does not ever make relevant in the controversy, in the case against the state, the fact that the target individual has bipolar disorder, just as an example. So I just want to point that out. The mental illness, the criminal defamation of the alleged mental illness of the target individual is exhibiting malice by the entity. That is in every regard exhibiting severe mental illness by virtue of the obsession that you are seeing through the ways in which the entity is stalking somebody, through a population, through the government, through every person, everything that they're doing. And you know that that's the actual focus and not what they want to appear to be on the surface being the focus, meaning you're not living in your apartment just minding your business. You're stalking 24/7 where you live. That's why a fake sun is over your apartment building. That is psychotic. You're not conducting a legitimate business while you're engaging in something that has nothing to do with the particular target individual apartment. You're stalking in the path, and everything that you're doing is pursuant to the elements of monitoring while you're doing it in engineered light, both during the day and at nightfall, under a fake sun during the day. And nothing you're doing is lawful or legitimate under any circumstances where the state is already an established stalker. I already established the fact that the state is a stalker years ago. And I stated very clearly years ago, now that I've surrounded the state with the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the government is stalking me, I'm going to prosecute the people of the state, because you need to understand that the government can't do it by itself. The government's relying on the people in that state. This is the malice with which an entity, a public entity, is targeting someone. This is how you have the police that never arrive at the apartment complex. They're never there. But the allegations are that the police are targeting, and they are. They are hiding amongst the population that's engaged in the exact same behavioral pattern, in the exact same specific environment, pursuant to the exact same focus on me, what I'm doing as I'm doing it, the simultaneity of conduct and engineered light under the fake sun, all right? Doing so as a population, the multiplicity of faces, the same POC, the same POC. So I just want to make sure that I point that out. That's psychological torture that I'm honing in on in concert with the Ontario Police Department, as I captured on video today. And again, this third-party license, MARMMAK, I want to make it abundantly clear to the feds. This is an Arizona plate captured in 3 videos now. And also, not only the fact that that's, again, systematic, means the state government shall stand down. The state government is trying to murder and kidnap somebody. The state government is not going to continue doing that. The entity is doing it now, but this is how the law is going to operate. You're not going to continue doing that. And that's what this state actor with license MARMMAK is doing. You're not going to do that and escape federal prison. She's going to prison. All right. And she's engaged in doing so as a means of psychological torture with the Ontario police. It's very personal what the entity is doing in the specific environment, where they're also aware of the evidence that you've already gathered against this third party. She's engaged in federal stalking. The entity knows exactly what I documented against her. And she intentionally and decided to commit it again. And I'm capturing it on video. You're going to prison. The state shall not under any circumstances communicate to the feds that you're not going to stop stalking and terrorizing an American citizen. This population, this public entity of psychopaths are being put in their place. This lawlessness has existed for far too long. That's the demons that are gang stalking, listening to the reality that the end of their reign, their satanic reign, is over. And so the result is, with simultaneity, just like the demon in Unit 55 on video, like she's throwing her body around while I'm speaking to the fact that it's cheaper to put these elderly demons in federal prison than to permit them to continuously prostitute the system and collect rent assistance. This is ridiculous. You're never collecting any rent assistance. So this is what the entity is doing. So traffic is amplified inside of the apartment. Okay, that's the public that's worshiping my genitalia as well. So while they engage in the pattern of conduct, you are always mindful of the bigger picture, because that POC is happening in a bathroom. Obsessed with my body, obsessed with my genitalia, and is also piercing it and listening to that as well, keeping that under surveillance as well. You don't have one part of the crime without the other. The psychopath stalker is the violent sex offender. That is what is encompassed in license MARMMAK. Engaged in federal stalking, monitoring evidence, refusing to take her foot off the brake while she's stalking in the path with light under the fake sun on behalf of the gang stalkers that are the Ontario police, while that demon, that's the state, knows that I'm capturing them on video to report them to the feds. This disregard of federal prosecutions is going to be met with serious time in prison. And that's what I want to make abundantly clear. Abundantly clear. It is currently, again, 5:39 p.m. The demon in Unit 55 is engaged in ongoing amplified audible activity, monitoring the evidence. That's the state as well. Aveneth Capital Management, gang stalking, while the demons are pacing, while I'm capturing this podcast, the ongoing impunity is executed in the following ways. As I've been engaged in discussion, the entity is amplifying audible activity, engaged in psychological torture. The same demons that are in traffic, monitoring and exhibiting hostility while the sound of traffic, which is amplification and engineered light, while they're stalking in the path, monitoring in other words, and demons exhibit hostility and threaten you and target you while you're prosecuted. These are delusional psychopaths. But I want to be clear, that is impunity. And the demons that are going to federal prison that are gang stalking with the population, that's just maintaining presence by driving all around, by living, by flying over. The demons in units 33 through 64 are going to prison for it. And the entity engages in what is psychological torture and ongoing impunity while engineer light illuminated Tracy Banks's patio glass door after it got dark, and then it illuminated again. This is well after 5 p.m., where the entity, again, is always admitting to failure. The sun is in no position over Alvarado Gardens, setting in alignment with my bedroom window and illuminating Tracy Banks's patio glass door. The sun is not rising over the units 33 through 48 at Woodside Senior Apartments and still in alignment with this same apartment after 5 p.m., creating any sunlight on the patio glass door. That creates any shadows on that patio glass door, while demons who are monitoring evidence acting with impunity. That's why they're all going to prison in units 33 through 64. This is what the entity's been doing throughout my discussion. Just want to make sure that I document that, because this is what they've been doing while I've been engaged in documentation. This is as foolish as putting your hands in the blood, and you might as well just put it all over because those are the fingerprints of those. They know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. And you're going to learn. You don't care what a federal government says today. You don't care what a federal prosecutor has to tell you today, but you will in federal court because you're going to prison for it. No state government is going to dictate to the federal government what it's not going to do regarding terrorism in this country. No gang stalking, sex offending stalker, okay? Nobody at that level is going to tell the federal government what it will and won't do. That's what these demons are currently doing. This ridiculousness is going to be met with serious time in federal prison. Serious time. And that is for the benefit of the rest of the country. If you think you're going to replicate what these demons in California did, you will recognize exactly what's going to happen to you. That will be you will realize the same fate, if not worse. Because of the level of harm that's inflicted against American citizens, they're murdering and kidnapping people. So the government can't do it anymore in secret. And so now the government is just mad. Like the state government is going to, with a straight face, tell the federal government what it's going to do. No, you're never going to do that. And that's exactly what's underway while they're gang stalking with impunity and malice as an entire city, worshiping an American citizen's genitalia while they're listening to the commentary about their criminal conduct being documented and published online. It is the state. It is the state government. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be tolerated. And this is what the entity is doing. And again, I am the one that is exposing and is experiencing this level of lawlessness, the defiance, the disregard, the disdain for law and order. Okay? For the truth to be spoken. For consequences to be had. For penalties to be implemented. This is what the entity is hostile to. They're a bunch of psychopaths. And they're violent sex offenders who are very much indeed spending thousands of dollars to monitor my genitalia, what's going on between my legs. And that's private. That's private. It's a private part, and it's also private. And they should have no interest in it, but they do. And then they conduct themselves as though they're going to further inflict harm because you enforce your rights and you tell the world which is necessary, because the gang stalking courts in California are no venue where you can seek redress. The fact that you have to go to such resorts is speaking to how long you're going to prison. They don't get it, but they will understand. They will understand. They're going to understand. This is what the entity is doing with impunity. So the ongoing engineered light while the demon-possessed are gang stalking, monitoring, psychological torture, while the federal government literally has an open case against the state. The state government is going to be put in its place, disrespecting the federal government. There's a whole notion regarding the un-American conduct of the state of California. All right, the hatred for the Constitution, for the constitutional doctrines and how the law operates, and the limits. This is the practice of just limitless abuse. And it does call for the removal of corrupt actors like Gavin Newsom. What I am being approached with, what I have witnessed, what I've documented, the ongoing desire and determination to try to keep it a secret, to try to mar my character in doing so. This is something that the state of California is not new at. I am just the first one it has been unsuccessful against. It's not enough to remove the mayor and the mayors that I've exposed. The governor itself, this is terrorism. This is not just robbing the grocery store. It's terrorism in the United States. Terrorism in the United States of America. Terrorism in North America. This is an oxymoron. They do not exist. It is antithetical to what we are supposed to represent in this country and in the world. It is no small thing. The entity is doing so and provides the wealth of evidence. You've got the police providing evidence to the federal government. I cannot understand the level of stupidity that I continue to capture. They are putting their hands in the blood and they're putting their palm prints all over the wall. The video evidence, the podcast, all of the wealth of evidence, it's going to be viewed again. It's being viewed in real time, but this is going to happen in court. We're going to revisit this. It's no mystery who you are, what you were doing, and it wasn't lawful. And it's within a pattern of conduct. And you boldly did it on video. And you've been doing that for years. It's not new as of 2025 and late 2024. This is going to be revisited in court. And that's what defies common sense. There, you are able to see the mental illness. There, you are able to understand the obsession. There. That right there, what I am trying to encapsulate for you, where I am speaking to what defies common. Why would somebody put their hand in the blood and leave their fingerprints with regard to what? Do you want to be caught for the murder? Most people that engage in crimes don't want to be caught for it. Will not leave trace evidence. You might as well leave a note. I did this. My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer. I am guilty. You can find me at X, Y, and Z Boulevard. I'll be there between 3 and 3:30. I'm going to be dropped off. My car's at being repaired right now, but I'm going to be dropped off, and you can catch me specifically getting out of the vehicle because I've specifically arranged a riot at this. This is the level of detail with regard to letting the federal government know exactly how to punish you for this and why. And it does not reside merely with the corrupt population. That includes the elderly, the unemployed, the corruption of businesses in the state, the local governments, the average family. It includes those that are operating throughout the county. It includes, and it does not exclude the governor, who is at the very least derelict on the job. But I want to be clear, Gavin Newsom is not ignorant about what all of the mayors in the state of California are practicing. He is not ignorant about what the county sheriffs in the state of California are practicing. He's not ignorant about what the population in California is practicing. He's not ignorant about that. He is not merely derelict. But again, even some demon that doesn't want to face it, a lot of this stuff, they're going to be too shameful to even face it. They're going to quietly bow out, but I'm not permitting that. That's why I call them out right now on the podcast. All right, in my video evidence, Because there is no sun, again, that's ever going to be over the Pentagon. It's never over the White House. It's never over the United States Supreme Court when it's rising and setting at Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California. People, this is, again, it's not genius what the state of California has committed. And the entity sought to murder me, that I would never be able to open my mouth and speak the truth about what the state is doing. And you are able to identify it on its face. Now, when you're getting past the malice of the entity that can no longer be in your face, they don't have a right to be anywhere. And the fact that they continuously do, because it is unrealistic that they're going to move away from their home, where they're also systematically gang stalking. But because of that, you're going to prison. You're going to prison for it. There is no right to be on the grounds of the venue, where you are aiding those that live and work at the venue, because they're going to prison. Coming onto the grounds and acting in concert, you're threatening. The state government is going to threaten my life in my face. You're delusional. You're going to prison. Okay, MARMMAK. Again, I just want to be clear. This is speaking to the impunity of an entire entity. Again, that license, MARMMAK. This is just an example regarding the malice, where psychological torture is very easily executed. Coming onto the grounds and just turning on your vehicle hazard lights, just going into your apartment and just chilling for a little bit, while a little bit of psychological torture is simultaneously underway, while you're engaged in federal stalking on your communication device. A whole operation is underway by the government and a population who know what I'm stating while they're driving down Vine Avenue. They all know what I'm stating. They know what they're doing, what I'm doing, what I'm subject to, what I'm documenting, what I'm doing on my devices, what I'm doing online. They all know what I'm doing inside with regard to my genitalia as well. And they engage in psychological torture together as an apartment complex, as a population, as a local government actor, as a state system. And it's disgusting, and it's vile, and it's straight out of hell. And I want to be clear, psychopaths, they derive pleasure while formally doing so under what's supposed to be some sort of malicious guise, and no one could recognize it. I step outside of my apartment, I read that license plate, I'm laying out what the entity is engaging in real time, and she's going to prison for it. But I want to be clear, psychopaths derive pleasure as a population, while the demons at Woodside Senior Apartments are engaged in 24-hour stalking. You have strangers just coming onto the ground and surrounding the ground 24 hours a day, engaging in the elements of monitoring together. That's why the demons at Woodside are going to prison. That's why they're going to prison. And these elderly demons, it is better that they go to federal prison and they rot there than they be free in order to benefit off of any government assistance. Well, they're never getting that again. Domestic terrorism, you are never, if you live outside of and I'm talking about those that are outside of being elderly. These are 55 and older, okay? They're already struggling with their health, but they still have the ability and the energy to gang stalk. You're going to federal prison like any other virile 25-year-old gang stalking me, okay? So you're going to prison, and you will never be qualified for any sort of housing assistance. You will never receive that aid. I want to make sure that marinates. You will never receive any government assistance for housing. No government, no state or federal government will support any prosecuted, any convicted terrorists. And that's what they're being prosecuted for. No one is going to help you pay your rent. And that's if you survive the elderly, if you survive your term in federal prison, if you survive it. That's very questionable. All right, so I want to be clear. It is better that the elderly are put in prison. It is cheaper with regard to the system that they're currently draining, while it is funding and making more systematic, more streamlined terrorism in the city of Ontario and terrorism in the state of California. There are a bunch of gang stalking lowlifes that don't want to get a job, and that's in order that people can be targeted. Because that's what filled Alvarado Gardens. While I'm on the job at work, they're all collecting welfare. They're all collecting assistance to pay their rent while I am working at that property, and they're gang stalking. That's what they're getting paid for. That's what they're getting housing assistance to do, to engage in. With the government using helicopters and airplanes. Terrorism. Under a fake sun and an engineered light. that whole property, they're all going to federal prison for that. But I want to be clear, this is speaking to the ways in which you're stripping down this whole system. The state is abusing federal funds. The state is in violation of the very federal rules that they're supposed to abide by, which is a means of funding terrorism by a bunch of unemployed, they're bums, they're unemployed, and they're gang stalking American citizens. This is how they get their bread and butter. This is how you don't have a job, but you're driving around in a BMW. Not that a BMW is the most luxurious car, but it's more expensive than somebody that doesn't have a job should be able to afford. This is how they do that. And this is the typical gang stalker. All right. The entity is engaging in a pattern of conduct, and you have what is the contribution to public corruption. The entity that's acting with impunity is so obsessed, so psychotic, so far removed from being sane. But this is not insanity that removes liability under criminal law, because they're psychopaths that derive pleasure from thinking that you're secretly psychologically torturing someone because nobody knows the significance of you parking your vehicle in alignment under a fake sun and engineered light and creating a method of light activity, while all manner of what is psychological torture is happening within the chambers of an apartment building. Okay? And that same entity wants to threaten you. That they want to threaten you by gang stalking you in concert with the police. No, you're not supposed to be able to appreciate or recognize that. That's why they're going to prison. And throughout this commentary, throughout this discussion, the entity having engineer light illuminating Tracy Banks's patio door well after 5 p.m. This is the demons that are pacing on the sidewalk outside while their upright shadows were appearing on the patio door, while the demon in Unit 55 that puts peroxide in her hair, gang stalking under the fake sun that sits over this apartment complex with license 5WB715 as the means of what is amplified sound of the ceiling cracking and the walls cracking, while this elderly person is walking around pacing like a lapdog. This is a mentally deranged person that is gang stalking where they live, putting your hand in the blood, your fingerprints all over the place. They know exactly where to find you. They know exactly what you are. And there is detail regarding the level of terrorism that you were determined to continue unto murder and kidnapping. Yes, you're going to be locked up. Tracy Banks isn't getting out. Tracy Banks is not the only one that's going to serve a lifetime or the rest of her life in a facility. She's not the only one. Right? It is currently, again, I just want to make sure I document that. It's 5:56 p.m. Right on time, the demon is arriving to engage in gang stalking with the state. She's been gang stalking all day long. Tracy Banks. It's P.O.C. Alrighty, engineered light inside of the depths of the apartment, like sunlight would reach into underneath the doorway and stretch on the floor, and no light fixtures are causing light activity to reach into the depths of the apartment on the closet door, crossing path, and activity creation. So it is, again, 5:57 p.m. This is the ongoing psychological torture, the sex offense underway by an entity maliciously acting amongst the community on behalf of the state, while federal stalking is ceaselessly underway. And it's all in violation of the Violence Against Women Act, 34 U.S.C. Section 1229, 12291. All right, which the entire community is being prosecuted. But remember, the state's violation of the Violence Against Women Act is also going to be used against them because it's gang stalking. So the government is interfering with quiet enjoyment. The population is acting on behalf of the government that are interfering with quiet enjoyment in order to monitor. And that's the prosecution of the landlord as well. It is 5:58 p.m. That's P.O.C. All right, pacing by the demon that resides in this unit and the demon above. This is the ongoing teamwork that I capture in images. 55 with 51 pacing together, amplified, ceiling crackling while pacing inside of the unit like psychopaths. These are the mentally ill that surround me while they're monitoring together, and they're committing a sex offense together as well. It's also incestuous while I'm being gang stalked by those that are your relatives because they are sharing that obsession with your genitalia and doing so with the public, with a government. It's very perverted, sick, and demented. It's satanic. But this is what the entity is doing while monitoring me and while I'm uploading the podcast. So this is all activity creation and engineered light. And doing so as teamwork, okay? The entire building is engaged in stalking in the path and stalking with light activity and stalking with ongoing amplified noise, which is a criminal interference with quiet enjoyment. They do it as on an ongoing basis. That's why you'll see the images of me pointing up to the ceiling, the same stalker never abandoning position above me and acting with regard to the entity that's surrounding as an ongoing basis, okay? All the appliances are means of light activity, audible activity while you're pacing back and forth to and from it, going back and forth to the trash, whatever it is that you're doing, it's pacing and it's psychotic, okay? But it's also, again, very disturbed conduct while relatives that are monitoring your genitalia, practicing this witchcraft conduct, worshiping your genitalia. And these are, okay, I wouldn't welcome that by any woman or man, and certainly not any relatives, but this is the reality of gang stalking relatives, and it's perverted. That's P.O.C. The use of the microwave is to monitor me, and you know that because the fake sun is over the apartment. This is a demon that's monitoring everything that I'm doing. It's absolute mental illness is what's exhibited. Doing so with the unit, again, 55, license 5WB715. This is going toward Avanath. It's going to be prosecuted civilly and criminally. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:47 p.m. This is documentation of ongoing psychological torture while the subject herself returns to her apartment and is engaged in the very severely mentally disturbing conduct of gang stalking one's own relative, exhibiting that level of diabolical malice. That level of malice is showing the intent to harm another. That doing so with regard to even the cough is audible activity. This is a psychopath and is being gang stalking while the demon in Unit 55 is repeatedly stalking in the path directly above me. As I'm reviewing the podcast, is boom, 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 directly above where I'm located in the living room. And this is 6:35 p.m. This is, again, repeat by the demon in Unit number 55, license 5WUB715. Again, all units in 1 through 144 are simultaneously being prosecuted for federal group stalking and monitoring. They are all in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. They are all engaged in federal stalking on communication devices. They are all engaged in psychological torture as an entity. And the units 33 through 64 are going to federal prison for what it continuously engages in through these gang stalking teamsters in the apartments, in the immediate environment, sharing in audible activity, sharing and pacing, sharing and stalking with methods of light activity. Right, and it is a criminal interference with quiet enjoyment. It is, again, at 6:45 p.m. Repeating the same thing, not going anywhere. Okay, this is a tiny apartment that these demons live in. You're talking about 600 square feet. You're talking about a little box, and this demon is just stomping back and forth, and doing so again as a means of criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, that which is serving the pattern of conduct. It's a sex offense occurring inside of a private space, which is where it is the target individual remains, regardless of the fact that the people of the state share that space. That is speaking to, again, the basis of federal prison for that level of invasion. The government has no consent, no lawful basis whatsoever, but this is prosecuting for that level of malice of a government to use the very people of the state to keep you under surveillance. And doing so with impunity. So I just want to document, this is also prosecution of Woodside Senior Apartments. The Avanath Capital Management, the landlord itself, is violating the Violence Against Women Act, is engaged in federal stalking under Title 18, is engaged in what is psychological torture as a corrupt company, is engaged in criminal surveillance with impunity and malice, and continuously does so, refusing to stop from doing it, while also maintaining ongoing knowledge of everything that's documented, showing severe mental instability, okay, in doing so. It is currently, again, coming out and sharing in what is the activity creation as I start recording right now, coming outside from the bedroom, opening and closing the microwave. That's light activity, if you know how a microwave operates. Light activity, audible activity, using the trash can while the demon is above me, stomping above. These are the demons that are engaged in 24-hour surveillance. So also doing so while in operation of my devices. This is technical abuse that is relevant to a pattern of psychological torture under the Violence Against Women Act. And this is both the landlord. I want to be clear, Daryl Carter, this is the CEO and the chairman, who is being going to be held liable. This is somebody whose corrupt company is profiting while this inhumanity is underway, and by virtue of his company, he is exhibiting this inhumanity toward a woman, violating the HUD rules that this property is regulated by, and doing so through the demons that are gang stalking in the apartment building that the property Aveneth Capital Management is profiting from. Its employees are gang stalking, like I captured on video. Its residents are gang stalking at a specific environment that Aveneth Capital Management is liable for. What the government is doing on its property, it is liable for. What's happening inside of the apartments, Aveneth Capital Management is also liable for. And the impunity that Aveneth Capital Management exhibits while doing so is also legally relevant. So I want to be clear. The inspiration behind going to use the microwave right now is my beginning to record this right now. And this is a gang stalking mother. Okay, obsessed, worshiping my genitalia, engaging in what is criminal defamation, while gang stalking and engaging in psychological torture equals the rest of your life in a mental asylum. That's where both of them are going. Units 55 and the demon inside of this unit. They're both going to mental asylums. And I continuously document the ongoing double Dutch-like teamwork of psychological torture. Okay, this is criminal activity by the government. It's criminal conduct by the government and by the people. And the entire apartment complex is being prosecuted with the evidence that I continuously accumulate. And everyone through unit number 1 is going to be prosecuted for the psychological torture it's engaging in with the demons in units 55 and unit 51, 33 through 64, with the state. They're all being prosecuted, all units 1 through 144. Okay. It is again, 6:52 p.m. This is while, again, the entity engages in the pattern of conduct, and then the entity is engaging in the pattern of conduct with the intent to obstruct justice. That is merely terrorizing, harassing, stalking with the intent of psychopaths engage in repeating the conduct over and over and over and over and over again. And it doesn't work against your federal prosecutor. You're going to prison for the rest of your life while you do so. Okay. This is, again, in Engineer Light. This is, again, with regard to one that is focused on your genitalia. This is the sex offender. This is a predator that engages in that with that level of impunity that belongs in the cages that they're going in. Okay. And this is, again, relevant to what is shared amongst the population. All right. That's speaking to psychopath conduct, not criminal insanity such that you don't appreciate the criminality. This is somebody that also seeks to profit from your demise. And that's also a matter of hard evidence. And the entity is gang stalking with that, and they're going to prison for it as well. Okay. That's what's stomping above in unit 55. That's criminal monitoring, and it's criminal interference with quiet enjoyment. All right. It is, again, 6:54 p.m. And that ongoing impunity is what is a matter of evidence on an ongoing basis. And it is that which is done as a population in concert with a government that should have no interest in my genitalia. However, this is what the government is expending millions of dollars on, monitoring my genitalia and monitoring my evidence and monitoring me with regard to the inability to control me. Okay, it is, again, 6:54 p.m. and this is P.O.C. The demon in unit 55 is license 5WB715, and this demon is stalking right above my head and employing what is amplified sound of pacing and stomping with regard to audible activity, criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment, shared with the entity that is stalking in the path in the Engineer Light monitoring together. That ongoing operation, all hours, day and night, pacing around the venue, flying over the venue, coming onto the grounds of the venue, stalking in the path while strangers that I don't know are monitoring and are engaged in federal stalking while the entity is monitoring my every move, monitoring my genitalia, monitoring every move that I make inside of the apartment, and also doing so as they are inspired while I document it. Okay. It is, again, 6:55 p.m. This is P.O.C. Woodside Senior Apartments is at 408 West G Street in Ontario, California. That is P.O.C.